Good evening, everyone. I now call this meeting to order of Richmond Public Schools School Board, August 2nd, 2021. Before we move forward with our meeting, I ask that we pause for a moment of silence. Mr. Kenneth, who was an ITRT employee of Richmond Public Schools, recently passed. And we all have lots on our minds this evening as we make the transitions of coming out of COVID, dealing with other items and issues as well. So please join me respectfully in a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much, and please do keep the Kenneth family in your thoughts. Madam Clerk, we're now ready for the roll call.
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Here.
District 2, Mariah White.
Present.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Here.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Present.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Here.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad.
She's on her way.
District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Here.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Here.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you so very much. First item on our agenda this evening is the adoption of the agenda. Just for an FYI, as we have done when we're virtual, Mr. Young will keep me apprised of who's in order to speak, because it's kind of hard to see by the manner in which we're sitting this evening, so he will continue with that practice of letting us know who's whom. So Mr. Young, at this time, do we have anyone on the list per se ready to address anything with the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. No, there isn't. So can we get a motion, please, to accept adopt the agenda as listed? Ms. Dorr,
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Dorr and Ms. Page. It has been moved and properly seconded that we accept the agenda as listed. Are we ready to vote? Question? Madam Clerk?
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad. District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum, and the agenda is adopted.
Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk. At this time, we will hear from our interpreter.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Si alguien ocupa servicio de intérprete, tenemos audífonos disponibles. Estamos a la parte de atrás del auditorio. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to note, as a matter of procedure, I think now that we are in person, we are not required to do individual roll call for adoption of the agenda. Just to help us save time moving forward, I think we can do all in favor.
Madam Attorney, please address.
I mean, we can consider that, but I don't believe that's been the practice.
It hasn't been. However it unfolds, we will be in good standing. All right, as we move forward, the next item on the agenda is the minutes, approval of the minutes, and colleagues, we have quite a few. Thank you to Mrs. Clark. Approval, I would like to take each at a time, or we can take them all together. Madam Attorney, which is best? One at a time?
If it's the pleasure of the board, they can take them in a group. But
All
we would
right.
need a motion for each of the dates and a
I hope,
second.
thank you. I hope everybody's had a chance to review the minutes for June the 7th, June the 28th, July 13th, July 19th, school board meetings. Is there any discussion? May I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the approval minutes in block.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was that, Mr. Young? Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Young and seconded by Mrs. White that we accept the block of minutes as listed. We are now ready to vote. Is there any debate, questions? If none, Madam Clerk?
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
Thank you.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad. District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the minutes pass unanimously.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's now time for public information. Now, as you know, according to our bylaws, our practice per se, our policy, that when we meet in public, we are not reading the letters that we've received, but we are answering them if they're written to the board members. So at this time, anyone that's here to speak this evening, we ask that you, where's the sign-up paper? Here at the front? We ask that you proceed to the podium, announce yourself. Please write on the paper, on the podium as well, your name and your contact information, your phone number, your email address. And we thank you all so much for being here this evening. You are timed. Okay. We are timed. For a group, it is 5 minutes. For one person, it is 3 minutes. We did have Ms. Tanya Francis. Is she here? Ms. Tanya Francis? She's here on her behalf?
Yes.
Would you be so kind to come to the podium first, because she did sign up, and then we'll have the others.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Do you want me to sign in
Would you
as
sign
myself?
in as
Ms. Burke?
yourself and then put Tanya in parentheses? Thank you
Sure.
for being here on her behalf.
Sure. All right. As earlier stated, I am speaking for Tanya Francis, who could not be here this evening. Dear Richmond School Board, as I sit here researching how to file a complaint regarding the disbursement of funding from the American Rescue Plan, it dawns on me I haven't provided you an opportunity to clear up some confusion. Please provide clarity and evidence of the following being addressed in your ARP proposal. Providing mental health services and supports, including through the implementation of evidence-based, full-service community schools. School facility repairs and improvements to enable operation of schools to reduce risk of virus transmission and exposure to environmental health hazards, and to support student health needs, inspection, testing, maintenance, repair, replacement, and upgrade to projects to improve the indoor air quality in school facilities, including mechanical and non-mechanical heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, filtering, purification, and other air cleaning, fans, control systems, and window and door repair and replacement, and other activities that are necessary to maintain operations and continuity of services and continuing to employ existing staff? How will the local education authority ensure that the interventions it implements, including but not limited to interventions implemented under Section 2001E1 of the ARP Act to address the academic impact of lost instructional time, will respond to the academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs of all students, and particularly those students disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, including students from low-income families, students of color, English learners, children with disabilities, students experiencing homelessness, children in foster care, and migratory students. Under this requirement, an
30
LEA
seconds.
must engage in meaningful consultation with stakeholders and give the public an opportunity to provide input in the development of its plan. Specifically, an LEA must engage in meaningful consultation with students, families, school and district administrators, including special education administrators and teachers, principals, school leaders, other educators, school staff,
Time.
and their union. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi, my name is Betsy Milburn. Greetings, school board members and administration. First, thanks to everyone for continuing to show up. It's been a long year for everyone. I am speaking tonight to request that the ARP funding be prioritized according to federal guidelines from April 22nd, 2021. While literacy, without a doubt, is a foundational issue within RPS, it is not the only pressing issue RPS faces. Within the ARP, there is a federal mandate for meaningful consultation of stakeholders within a local district. I request that in some way this happen before a school board vote. I feel that ESL and middle and high school students have been largely left out of this proposal. Also, the funding should be used as much as possible to strengthen our facilities so that learning is not obstructed by the lack of airflow, broken equipment, and non-functioning facilities. While not all facilities problems can be addressed by this funding, many foundational and functional items can be addressed. These federally mandated regulations have been known since April, and it seems disingenuous that meaningful consultation with the community has not happened. This administration is responsible for giving the board information. George Wythe is not an excuse for the administration to not have engaged the community. In fact, there has been significant engagement for George Wythe. The administration was only charged with creating 3 new positions and following a VDOE process that the administration has followed countless times over the past 4 years in job reorganization and creation. I would also say that this board needs to do a better job of staying abreast of items instead of waiting for information to be handed to them. Everyone's job is to be proactive in working for the students. I hope this board acts in good faith to make things right. Thanks, and it's been good to be back in person.
Thank you. Mr. Jewell?
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see everybody again. It's been a long time. I'm here in utter dismay at the public argument going on about George Wythe construction. It's heartbreaking. Everybody in this fight are good folks. Sadly, we've been divided, and yes, the mayor continues to divide. If I'm not mistaken, I understand him to have publicly acknowledged that schools have the statutory authority to build schools. As a matter of history, I've been running around this town for a long time, so I recall when the city of Richmond had an in-house architect and a staff who oversaw all construction. When he retired or resigned, he was never replaced, and so we brought in a construction manager at-risk consultant. At-risk means where there are cost overruns, that consultant is responsible to pay it. To my knowledge, it's never happened, while I'm understanding the auditor report suggests that over the last 3 schools, we have been overcharged $30 million. As a rule of thumb, an elementary school in this area, that's within the last 8 years, costs $20 million. A middle school, $50 million. A high school, $80 to $90 million. I'm hearing $140 million, which is astoundingly absurd. And so I've got to believe that there's some dog in this cat when superintendent would be given that kind of a figure, and we have not proofed it out to know whether it's bogus or real. 2 schools are being built in Henrico right now under $100 million. They are gigantic. So let's see if we can't get back on track. The other thing is, with this federal money.
30 seconds.
With this federal money, the law says you shall hold public hearings. I've not heard of any public hearings or an opportunity for the public to weigh in on how those funds are to be dispensed. And so, on the one hand, we're violating the law when schools have the right to build schools authority. And on the other hand, we've got, we failed to provide a public hearing for the public to weigh in on this stuff. That's a lot of money. Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Superintendent, cameras, Vice Chair, and members of the school board, and those in the audience, my name is Charles Willis. I come as Executive Director of United Communities Against Crime. The speaker before me, the Honorable Marty Jewell, I agree with wholeheartedly with what he's saying. Schools should build schools. He's exactly correct. However, the dog and the cat, or the cat and the dog, is the fact that neither one of them are prepared to fight. Although all of them are barking back and forth, the cats are meowing and the dogs are barking, but no one is coming to the table to say, hey, let us reason together. I want to make it clear before the audience today, and I'm not really speaking to the board, because I come to inform you and to be informed. So to inform you is that, again, the letter that the mayor sent was only to make some suggestions and to come to the table and let us talk about it. I saw nothing in his letter, and I asked any board member to please share with me, not at this time, I know you're not, so I'm not going to even ask you to do it at this time, but I would ask that you please give me a call and show me in the letter that the mayor sent to you all that says the city of Richmond is going to build the school, that the city of Richmond is taking over building schools. So community, please don't get it twisted. The mayor's letter does not say that he wants to build schools. It says, come let us reason together. We're at war with each other. And the war is not going to be won out here in the streets and in the community. The war is won at the table. We have to come to the table. And when we don't have folks that don't want to come to the table and reason together, then we have issues. So I have to say that in all honesty of my heart, because I believe that we can all get along. As a famous king once said by the name of Rodney King, we can all get along. And with that, we have to do that. And that's part 2 of why I'm here today. We are getting along. One of my reasons for standing today, and all of you all know, that I try to pride myself in being a gentleman. So please forgive me, Madam Chair and ladies, as I wear this hat saying National Night Out, because we are embarking tomorrow on an opportunity where police and community are coming together to get along. This is one day that we recognize together that we all need to get along. So I encourage all of you all to go to your respective communities. Board members, please, if you don't have a national night out that you're planning to attend, you are more than welcome to join the mighty, often imitated, but we can never be duplicated, over in the 8th District, where the Honorable Don Page and others would join us at 4000 Richmond Highway for National Night Out. It all starts at 6 o'clock, and I just got a call on my way over here that the mayor will be joining us to distribute the proclamation. And that's an honor that any one community that would serve or have an opportunity where the mayor and the police, that the proclamation would be read and given at your event. So I encourage all of you all to come out. You all are part of the sponsorship. Dr. Harris, I thank you so much for your community engagement, because your staff and the team, Ms. Epps and others, and Mr. Superintendent, have been wonderful in our community, engaging and getting folks ready for Richmond Public Schools and our buildings. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, but I do want to make it clear that, yes, schools should be building schools, but school leaders should be sitting at the table with other leaders to make sure it happens efficiently and effectively. God bless you, and join us tomorrow afternoon for our National Night Out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willis.
Where's Tracy? It's the hair.
If he took his off, I'm taking mine off. Welcome back. Isn't it fun to be in person? Thank you for having this at MLK so I don't have to find and pay for parking downtown.
What's her name?
Would you be so kind to state your name? We know you.
Susan Hawes. Not everybody knows me.
We know you, but
Some
just for the
people know
record,
me,
thank
some
you.
people are new.
Yes.
I'm enjoying being back. I really am glad that you're still going to do the virtual. I really enjoyed that. I got to yell at home and nobody knew it was me yelling, as opposed to sometimes y'all see me yelling in the background. I will be at Swansboro this year, in case you don't know. I am coming from Fairfield last year. Fairfield, I really appreciate all the new schools. We need to pay attention to the schools that we already have. That school needs some love. It's in the East End. It needs a paint job. It needs a place for people to park. It needs a decent playground, not just a big old dirt area. So please keep that in mind when you're thinking about how you're going to spend your money this year. It's not just about the new and shiny. It's about the old and worn, because people are still there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings, Honorable Chairwoman Cheryl Burke, Jason Cameras, our Superintendent, school board members, and administration. My name is Rev Robin D Mines. I am an alumni of Georgia High School, Air Force veteran, president of the Swansboro West Civic Association, and a pastor. And I first of all like to clear something up with the public. Mayor Stoney in no way has caused any separation or division in this issue. We went to Mayor Stoney. We invited him to our meetings. We pleaded to him to fight for the promise that was made to us to get a school built. So let's clear that up right now. I'm sick of the shade thrown at the mayor and any other official in this game. It's not about the mayor. It's not about city council. It's not about the school board. It's not about Robin or anyone else in this room. It's about our children. And I'm sick and tired of being accused of complaining and called ridiculous. The ridiculous thing is that we have a school building over 60 years old. I graduated from that school and I'm 63 years old. No maintenance has been done to that school. Mold, mildew, rats, roaches, feces, urine throughout the building. It's crumbling. Our children are ashamed of going there. That's what's ridiculous. What's ridiculous is in 2021, a black and brown community has to beg for a decent school. And then we're going to be told that, well, let's downsize it so that we can be overcrowded in a few years. Come on, Richmond. Haven't we learned from our history? How many of you have been here in the game for a while? Why do we keep making the same mistakes over and over again? Why are our communities continue to be overlooked? Gentrification is tearing us apart. And your plan, Mr. Jonathan Young, proves it, because you want to seal the deal of gentrification on the south side, but not as long as I have a stake in the game. We're not having it. We're tired of it. And no, it's not just about George Wythe. We have several buildings that need to be replaced in this district, in this city, and several buildings who need repair. And we do not have time for foolishness and power plays and pettiness. Enough is enough. It's time for all of us to get with it and do the right thing for our children and stop playing these foolish games. It's time to let our superintendent do the job that he's here to do, and that's to make sure that our kids excel, make sure that everything is done in excellence. Your message to us is that you don't care about the children or the faculty and staff that has to be in these buildings. Come on, Richmond, let's do better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Lakeisha Williams. I am a parent today and a resident of the 8th District. Today I hold about $300 worth of medication, over $1,000 worth of bills that are due now. About 10 pages of data of my son, who has been hospitalized since the COVID-19 positive testing was done at Broad Rock Elementary. Some of my data come from a company that is partnered with RPS called RVA Briefs, which is a partner that supports children with asthma. Back when we first started hosting our community conversations, I asked several times to the doctors, the superintendent, and several other people that were on those Zoom calls, how are we going to support children with asthma? And they assured me that they were going to be okay. 3 days into summer school, my son became ill. The first thing I did was take him to get tested for COVID because he resembled all signs of it. He came back and he tested negative. From then on, we've been back to the emergency room for stays all the way up until yesterday. The school called me and said that, Ms. Williams, can you come and pick him up? His cough is so dangerous that we fear that he will suffocate himself behind the mask. RVA Briefs went into the trailer where he was at Broad Rock, and they did some observation. There's moisture that is sitting in those trailers. There are drafts around the windows and doors that comes in through those trailers. The covering on the bottom of those trailers, I've reached out to Ms. Page several times, and she's had them to go over and check them and repair them, and they continue to fall down. The testing I got from RBA Briefs stated that he came in contact with mold.
30 seconds.
Some other type of things that had put him in danger of his breathing. So since I got the 30-second warning, I will send a copy of the data to the board so that it can be reviewed and children with asthma can be considered in this situation. I'm also asking from the superintendent, if you could be so kind to relaunch the links to let parents reconsider their options of in-person or virtual due to our high numbers that are rising. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Good evening. I just basically have a quick question that you all could actually answer here. I just want to know that the time.
Sir, please,
Yes.
excuse me, before you get started, would
Yes.
you state your name for the
I'm
record?
sorry, A.V. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay. Like I was saying, I just want to know that the time change that you made for high schools, has that been implemented? Is that basically in stone, or that's still up for debate, or what? Anybody?
The reason that we're all hesitating is that during this period, we usually listen, but that is on the agenda for tonight.
Okay. I mean, so it hasn't been completely decided yet?
It's on the agenda for tonight.
It's on the agenda? Because I was just wondering, because I got a couple of friends that drive buses, and when I hear everything about, the time change, getting kids back in the classroom, my first thought goes to, well, what are you doing for the buses? How are they being separated, or how the bus is being cleaned? Is that being taken into consideration? And if you're changing the high school schedule, you're letting high schoolers get out after the elementary kids, which in most cases, because I used to drive a school bus, the high school kids go pick up their younger siblings to keep watch over them until the parents get home. If you change that around, you throw a whole lot of things out of whack. Now, I understand you're looking out for the high school students, saying they don't get enough sleep, blah, 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 blah. A lot of them don't get enough sleep because they don't get enough sleep. It's not because they got jobs or they're doing homework. They're just hanging out and staying up late. So if you haven't made that decision and put it in stone yet, I surely hope you reconsider, and I surely hope you ask parents to come in on that, because I'm sure a lot of parents depend on their high school students to pick up their younger siblings and watch them until they get home from work or whatever it is they have to do during the day. Because to change that schedule around throws a lot of things out of whack. And I haven't heard anything from last year to this year about children will be separated so many feet apart on a bus, where they be mandated to wear masks, how buses are being cleaned, and I sure haven't heard anything about teachers being mandated to get vaccinated. Children that are able to get vaccinated, are they vaccinated? Are you putting in a mandate? Are you putting in a mandate for masks? Or you just like, willy-nilly? Have you updated the systems like the young lady was saying, when you take the money and do the schools? Have you updated the filtration system, the ventilation system? So it's a major question. That's all I wanted to know.
30 seconds.
That's good. I'm good. I can't stay here, unfortunately, for you to answer that question, because I got to go to church right now, but I will be checking in. This is my first school board meeting, but it won't be my last. You all have a good evening. Yes.
Dr. Harris, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes, ma'am.
for coming. Come again.
I will.
And someone's going to follow up with you right now.
Okay.
Regarding some of your concerns. Mr. Minor?
We have 5 minutes left in
We
the
have
session.
5 minutes left.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is James J.J. Minor. Good evening to all the school board members and all who are assembled. All of that Reverend Mines said, I seconded. It's too much political posturing, too many games. I've spoken with several of you all in reference to coming to the table to compromise. It seems to me that some of you all don't want to do that. That's fine. Let the games begin. Because in the end, the public will win. I promise you that. To be continued.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Are you coming forward? All right, this will be our last speaker for tonight. You have, 3 minutes?
3 minutes, 55 seconds.
Thank you all.
Good evening. My name is Brianna Nomi, but I'm speaking on behalf of Miss Amanda Reisner, who is a teacher at Elizabeth Red Elementary School and a former colleague of mine. Good evening. I am glad you are finally interested in investing in correctly teaching reading in RPS. Many of us have wished this had begun earlier. We would have been a lot better off if the current administration had listened to the person who tried to begin this process with a letters cohort, an expansion of that cohort 3 years ago, instead of implementing EL, which does not use many of the methods letters and other SOR systems suggest as best practice. One prime example is high-frequency words. EL does not teach them effectively. Last year, many people downtown observed me teaching reading, and I was commended for it, and it was even suggested teachers come observe me from other schools. What was never mentioned, though, was the strategies I used were not EL strategies. Instead, I used strategies that I had learned over the years studying things like letters, OG, and from my first school district in Northern Virginia 17 years ago. If we want our students to be successful readers, we don't need to spend all of this money that has been allocated for it. We have so many other needs, like getting schools like mine that are run down and outdated up to par. I agree, though, that we do need to educate our teachers who have not been trained in best reading practices, but that means we also need to stop micromanaging teachers and forcing them to use EL, especially in small groups. If you want teachers to implement all of these things that you are proposing, then please promise that we will not be scolded when we do not use EL, because they do not go hand in hand. Thank you. Amanda Reisner.
Thank you, and thank you everyone who came out this evening and shared public comments. We're now ready to move forward with the agenda. Next item on the agenda is board action items 3.01, receive for action the personnel actions. Ms. Lee.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Young, school board members, Superintendent Camrus. The Talent Office brings forth the following personnel actions for your consideration: the nomination of 89 employees, the change of contract of 32 employees, the resignation of 16 employees, the returning from leave of 1 employee, the retirement of 7 employees, the rescission of resignation of 1 employee, and the name change of 1 employee. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Ms. Lee. Can we get a motion, please, to accept the personnel item actions? Mr. Young? Mrs. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about personnel, but I think it's closed.
All right, that's fine. So we can go into close then. We're prepared for that. Thank you, Ms. Lee. We'll see you in close.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is 3.02, receive for action amendment to the salary schedule. Ms. Lee again. Okay.
Good evening again. The Talent Office is requesting the approval of the amendment of the salary schedule, which includes updated position titles and the addition of supplemental compensation that we offer for our teachers for the very hard work that they do. Thank you.
We've heard the report. Is there a motion, Mr. Young? Ms. Gibson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering what the budget implications are for the amended salary schedule.
There are 2 supplemental pay amendments that include the instructional lead and the academic architect, which are being paid out of operational. Is my understanding? Yes. Thank you, Dr. Epp.
You have another question?
Yes, if you could clarify what that amount is and why it would come out of a different line item, it seems like it would be appropriate to amend the budget or budget transfer or something.
Typically, the payment was done hourly, but we have changed it to a year-long stipend. So the instructional lead will essentially be for K through 8 department-like chairs. They will be focusing on instruction across the grade and content area, and then academic architects will be supporting curriculum, implementation, assessment alignment, and other needs as identified throughout the year.
So I'm still asking about
It is
the impact on the budget.
It is a budgeted expense. We're simply moving it to a year-long stipend instead of paying hourly.
And why was that change made?
To simplify the tracking and the work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Anyone else, Mr. Young? Can you see? All right, can we get a motion, please, regarding the 3.02 salary schedule?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Young has moved. Is there a second to accept this report as listed?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Young and seconded by Mrs. Don Page. Are we ready to vote? Question? Madam Clerk.
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad. District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Lee. The next item on our agenda, 3.03, receive for action a request for authorization for the superintendent to hire through 1st September board meeting. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is our annual request to allow us to hire in between meetings so that we are prepared for the start of the school year and do not need to wait in between meetings to make those hires.
Thank you. Mr. Young?
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion there too. However, I would propose an amendment to what the superintendent just requested of the board, specifically that the authorization solely pertain to school-based employees, persons that work in, report out of a school, and exclude central office personnel. If that's agreeable with my colleagues, I would so move.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Young and seconded by Ms. Gibson that the superintendent will hire per school-based positions. Thank you. Are you ready for the question? Ready to vote? Madam Clerk?
Question.
Question, yes, Mrs.
Yes.
Page.
So I want some clarity on the motion. So what is the difference, or what are the concerns about central office versus school-based?
Mr. Young, would you like to address that?
Gladly. The intent of the motion is an acknowledgement that we're about to reopen school and there is some urgency that may preclude a hire in between now and when school convene. But central office, at least in yours truly's opinion, largely would not merit or warrant that same urgency. I would remind my colleagues we'll be back at the table in 2 weeks, so I anticipate we'd have an opportunity for any central office personnel to vote on positions then.
Mr. Superintendent?
Excuse me. The administration has no objection to that. Thank you.
Ms. Page, are you good? All right, are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk?
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad. District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move forward now to 3.04, receive for action superintendent's recommended spend plan for the ARP federal stimulus money. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We bring forth to the board for action this evening, for the board's consideration and action, the proposal for our spend plan for the American Recovery Program, ARP, or Biden stimulus funding. As we have discussed previously, about 40% of this money is dedicated to continuing the investments that we made with prior federal stimulus, some of which went to facilities investments, some to technology, some to instruction, some to social and emotional support. The balance, about $65 million, we are proposing for a division-wide literacy plan that we have discussed previously. The specific amounts are outlined in the following slides. I'm not going to review them again. I do want to make just a few notes in response to some of the public commentary and questions that I have received, and I know some board members have received. First, I do want to again reiterate that a portion of this funding is going towards facility upgrades, number one. Number two, there are additional sources of revenue coming for facilities. The governor recently announced several $100 million of state funding specifically for schools and HVAC support. In addition, President Biden's infrastructure plan, which appears to be successfully making its way through the Senate, has additional funding for school facilities. And again, as I shared previously, there are investments in the ARP itself for facilities as well. That's number one. Number two, as we have discussed previously, literacy is not only one of the most, if not the most important skill that we can share with our young people, but we truly face nothing short of a crisis when it comes to this. While the plan focuses on early literacy, we are making investments and supports for all grade levels, including middle school and high school, and Dr. Ebb can speak to that if the board would request that. And then finally, as it pertains to public input, which we certainly welcome on this plan, I do want to note that this is actually the third school board meeting that this plan has been before the school board. We originally brought it to the board in June. It is now August. So there have been 3 opportunities for discussion, 3 opportunities for public debate and public comment. Finally, let me just add, our application for the use of these funds to the state is due on September 1st. If we do not take action tonight, I do fear rather significantly that if we wait until our next school board meeting, we will not be in a good position to submit all of the necessary paperwork that needs to go to the state in time, which could put this funding in jeopardy. So given all that, I do respectfully ask for the board's approval of this spend plan this evening, and I'm glad to take any questions and also glad to have Dr. Epp respond as well. Thank you.
Before we ask questions, Dr. Epps, would you like to come to the podium in case there are questions to be asked? Thank you. Mr. Young?
Yes, ma'am. We do have some colleagues, but is it your pleasure for Dr. Epp perhaps to proceed?
Well, she's going to ask, you were going to answer questions, or you had a presentation, Dr. Epp?
I was just prepared to answer questions. Thank you.
Ms. Gibson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I wanted to express I'm concerned because this requirement for public input was not intended, as you read the regulations by the federal government, was not intended to be an opportunity for the community to weigh in after the fact. If you read the language in the regulations, which were published, as is stated in April 22nd, so we've certainly had time, it's stated under this requirement, an LEA, which a local education must engage in meaningful consultation with stakeholders and give the public an opportunity to provide input in the development of its plan. Specifically, an LEA must engage in meaningful consultation with students, families, school, and district administrators, including special education administrators and teachers, principals, other educators. It goes on to say that the LEA must engage in meaningful consultation with civil rights organizations, including disability rights organizations and stakeholders representing the interests of children with disabilities, English learners, children experiencing homelessness. I say this to say that we don't fill this requirement by simply putting this up on board docs and allowing and hoping that the community sees it and weighs in. We simply have not met the criteria. I share feedback that I've heard from the community regarding the importance of addressing our facilities. I have expressed many, many times as a board member my concern on using one-time fund for recurring costs. I want to implore my colleagues to recognize we are setting ourselves up for a true nightmare in 2024 when these funds run out and we have millions and millions of staffing positions. I mean, in this request, it's $29 million in recurring funds. This, to me, is irresponsible. I also am disappointed that the document itself, it just does not have the basic level of detail. So there's $58 million that we're saying will cover things from the past, like, you know, the public deserves to see what that is. And if I recall, there was $8 million that was allocated to full year school. As a board member, I still don't know where we ended up putting that money and what that's going to. I'm also pretty certain that all of the line items that were in the previous application of funds was not recurring. So I simply don't understand where all the money is going in this proposal, and I certainly feel that that this proposal was supposed to be kind of from the community. This was a consultation. This was a collaboration. So unfortunately, I'm not able to support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. And let the record show that Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad has joined us this evening. All right, any other persons, Mr. Young? Ms. Doerr, and be mindful, colleagues, we have 3 minutes, 6 minutes total for each topic. Thank you. Ms. Doerr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions. One, Dr. Epp, if you could speak to the funding that is going to grade 6 and beyond. Two, Mr. Camrus, I read in one document in the ARP plan that we were allocating $8 million to facilities, but that I can't find it in this document. So you mentioned that there was some amount of dollars going to facilities as part of the ARP fund. So if you could let me know where I can find that so that I can review it, that would be great. And then three, I wanted to just get an update on the governor's HVAC budget. It's my understanding that there's a requirement for a match, and so I just want to make sure that I heard through the grapevine that the VDOE doesn't have a record of our request, and so I wanted to just have you set the record, give you the opportunity to set the record straight there, and make sure that we're not leaving any money on the table as it relates to the dollar-for-dollar match within the HVAC fund. And then finally, I think that we all can agree that coming to a school board meeting is one way to have meaningful public engagement, but I was wondering if the administration could talk to how they define meaningful consultation and who they worked with in partnership to develop this plan. Thank you.
Anyone else, Mr. Young? Ms. Page?
And Ms. Jones.
Who was first?
Ms. Page.
All right, thank you.
So I have a comment and 2 questions. Once again, this board chooses, or what constitutes a public engagement? Because again, we did not consider public engagement when we had the discussion concerning George Will. So that's my comment. My question, will it be a stipulation for teachers to give back to the district after receiving the intensive training? And two, can you discuss what type of parental initiatives to assist our children with the literacy program?
I'll start with Ms. Dorr's question in terms of an overview of funding efforts related to our secondary age students. So first, I want to remind folks that we have several funding sources that all come together to execute our Dreams for RPS strategic plan and align to that, and to execute our needs that we've talked about at this body. So there's a number of initiatives, both through our operating budget, the original, we call it the ESSER funds, as well as our federal title dollars, which this board approved some time ago, related to literacy and math academic supports, among many other things. Specifically for these dollars, while the emphasis is on early literacy, we have not excluded services for secondary age students. So this proposal includes expending dollars on trade books so that students can continue to have their own copies of books to read, and they do not have to rely on class sets. They can mark their own copies up and take them home. It contributes to the Lit Limo to operate and expand that effort, which is not specific to elementary. That's for all grades. It contributes to adding interventionists and coaches at schools, including several middle schools, to ensure that every school has one. It includes funding for scaling up our extended day efforts in middle school. Our extended day efforts were the strongest in our middle schools, but not across the board. So this allows us to scale that up. And then similarly, expanding funding to expand the evidence-based reading programs in our middle school for our reading skills courses, which are taught by interventionists as well as other trained staff for students who are behind in reading level. That's just a few of the examples how we support secondary. I will note on the engagement side for our purposes around literacy work, knowing that literacy has been a priority in our Dreams for RPS plan, and as the data suggests, these initiatives and efforts did not come in a vacuum. They came from talking to teachers, to principals, specifically our Teacher Advisory Council, about this proposal in terms of what it would take to win on literacy and make real progress for our students. I have a kind of steering committee of veteran elementary teachers here in Richmond who I talked through this proposal with and got their feedback, as well as our principals, our exceptional education team, and our English language support team. Ms. Page, can you repeat your question, please, so I answer it specifically?
So my questions.
Use the mic, Ms. Page.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Will it be a stipulation for teachers to give back to the district after receiving the intensive training and working with our students? And my second question, can you discuss what types of parental initiatives to assist our children with the literacy program?
Thank you, Ms. Page. On your first question, this proposal includes several opportunities to provide our teachers and other educators with opportunities to expand their knowledge around literacy instruction. Some of the efforts do have a commitment for continuing with RPS, specifically those attached with earning a degree or certificate. So for example, expansion of the reading specialist cohort that allows teachers to earn that endorsement through our UVA cohort or through other credential programs or partnerships with VCU around ESL and reading specialists, for example. Those would require an additional commitment, and that is part of their agreement when they sign up because it's a multi-year program. Other efforts like the Literacy Institute, where teachers would participate in, say, a letters track or something, another one called the core track. We pay teachers for that extra time, but that does not, we treat that as kind of standard professional development. It does not come with an additional commitment for years of service. In terms of parental initiatives, this is one of our big buckets of work in the literacy proposal, and this includes a myriad number of initiatives ranging from, first and foremost, starting with our community partners, as our community partners already have organizing functions with our families, making sure that they understand our priority around literacy and the services that we partner with them are related. So, for example, working with community organizations to offer family nights for literacy, to understand your child's reading data, but also what you can do at home. We have our family liaisons, and Dr. Harris's team has been worked very closely with my team in developing various parental engagement efforts, making sure families understand their child's current state, understand the supports that are available, so doing outreach to ensure those students sign up for extended day, for example, doing outreach so that families know exactly what supports they can provide their students, are just a few of those initiatives.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Young, any other questions? Ms. Jones, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Jones, I forgot.
Thank you. So a couple of my questions fall along the lines with my colleagues. And I believe I asked when you presented last board meeting, Dr. Epps, specifically about the community engagement, because I thought that it was very important. And I wanted to know what steps were going to be taken. And we kind of didn't get back to it, so I didn't really know where that landed. But just thinking about, the engagement you mentioned, including the parent advisory group and some of your teachers, but according to the rules and regulations of this actual application, were the groups that were also mentioned in this application a part of this advisory group? So the homeless, poor, all of those folks that were included, were they a part of this advisory group? And if not, how do we kind of justify that we've actually engaged these groups?
I cannot answer for every single possible group. I do know that across the educators that I engaged, they reflect a very good cross-section of educators who work with our students from various demographics and special populations. Mm-hmm. So I do know that the teachers I engaged and the principals engaged and our teacher advisory council do reflect a broad swath, but I cannot sort of specifically guarantee that each of those groups broadly were engaged on the literacy aspect. Mm-hmm. When we think about the literacy focus in particular, we really wanted to turn to our educators who, when we're thinking about moving the needle on reading, that is a specialized skill set, the way heart surgery is. Mm-hmm. And while I certainly welcome additional thoughts and feedback about how we can strengthen our plan, this came from a set of experts. I will also remind the board, as part of our literacy, our Dreams for RPS work, 2 years ago called for launching a community-wide committee to develop a literacy plan, so that this work dovetails with that. So while this is a specific focus on early literacy and how to utilize these dollars, Also attached, we have a comprehensive literacy plan that was developed by a broad set of stakeholders, which was, I think, shared on our website as well, that we pulled these strategies from and then added to them after talking with our educators.
So my other question is, with all of that detail that has happened, or the pre-work that has happened prior to the application, is there any reason why we was unable to maybe share what the consensus was? So, because I just have a kind of concern with voting on the money. I think it's a great plan. I think it is definitely needed and for what we are trying to allocate it for, but there are some repercussions that I do think, if we are not looking at everything, again, later on down the line, how do we know, once these funds are allocated, how do we know, from year to year where they've gone? How do we know specifically to the positions? I mean, there are just a lot of, unanswered questions that I think if the pre-work was done beforehand, it would be a little easier to say, yep, we did X, Y, and Z, and along with, our experts, our teachers, our families, our parents, this is the reason why this money should be specifically allocated. And I just want to maybe know how we would be able to, how would that information be provided to us moving forward?
Yeah, I understand. What I can say with confidence from my seat is the strategic plan that this board and our community, after 171 community sessions approved several years ago, the very first actions and priorities were related directly to literacy. And so I think this administration started from that basis, that we have literacy as a major priority that was communicated to us by the community. And we know that COVID had a lot of negative impacts, but in particular, the data is undeniable that it has most directly impacted our children's literacy rates. And when you look at the research on literacy, and we combine that with the fact that the community in the Dreams for RPS process prioritized literacy, I think from there we wanted to continue the work rather than go in a totally different direction. And so we focused, at least on my end, around the literacy work, focused our engagement with our educators, our teacher advisory council, our early elementary educators. We did have a large conversation. We had a conversation with our community partners that Dr. Harris and I co-facilitated and received feedback with very eager responses. In terms of the specifics of the bill and those requirements, I'm not able to fully speak to that.
I think I might be out of my minutes, so.
Happy to talk reading all day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Harris, would you mind sharing a little bit about some of the engagement also with the faith community and others in the parent community on this? Thank you.
Good evening, school board. I would just like to add, we also had Dr. Epp present to our Parent Advisory Council, which is diverse across the entire division with representation from different districts as well as different backgrounds. That was something we were very intentional with our Parent Advisory Council. Dr. Epp presented drafts of where we were thinking around the literacy plan, and we were able to get feedback. We also have a very comprehensive group of faith-based leaders who get together once a month. Dr. Epp and her team also presented early on draft ideas to that interfaith council, and we were able to seek feedback. But what was powerful is we were able to see iterations change based on their feedback. Overall, we heard both from our parents, our families, as well as from our faith-based leaders that we engaged in, that literacy was the focus area. They agreed, and they were grateful for the focus so that they could wrap around something very specific and wanted more guidance from us on how they could get engaged. So that was one of our major takeaways. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Ms. Rizzi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Epp, for your presentation.
I want to back up a little bit. I think my colleague, Ms. Dorr, maybe asked you to talk about supports for students beyond 8. Am I correct with that, Ms. Dorr? Was that ever addressed?
Sorry, can you repeat what you said?
Support for students beyond the 8th grade with this literacy plan.
I have a couple of questions, yeah.
You had asked about it, and I just didn't hear an answer or response.
I did hear Dr. Epp talk about the extended day, the reading skill courses, trade books, et cetera, but.
And those are for high schoolers?
Yeah, I can be more specific to high school, Ms. Rizzi. Yes, so some of those things I mentioned apply K-12. Trade books for students to have their copies of their own novels, that is true across K-12.
Right.
Reading interventionists to teach the reading skills courses using the evidence-based programs, that is true in both middle school and high school. Those are the 2 primary high school specific ones. A student who is struggling as a reader in high school needs both. The third is all teachers are eligible and have been invited to the Literacy Institute and to the Professional Learning Series, as well as the cohort experiences to expand their expertise by earning an additional reading specialist credential. That is not limited to elementary teachers. That is open to all K-12 teachers who are interested in that.
Okay, thank you. And I have a question. I see the only place in your plan that I see like room for evaluation or assessment along the way, and this is an ambitious plan that is, it's an expensive plan in some ways. I don't see measures built into this that will track progress, or I don't see any discussion of how these various parts are going to be evaluated along the way. I don't see anything specific listed about that. And in fact, in the inclusivity part, it's more of evaluating the resources than it is evaluating the plan. And so could you talk to us about how this is going to be evidence-based and how along the way we'll be able to see incrementally how this is working?
Sure, thank you. Appreciate that question. So our ultimate measure is whether we see students improving in their reading ability year over year over year, aligned to our Dreams for RPS measures related to either PALS data in the early grades or MAP or SOL data in the upper grades. In terms of tracking efficacy of efforts, this is why we have added to some of the personnel in this plan. It does call for a data specialist to help track and monitor that data, both for the efficacy of our efforts, but also to provide real-time data to principals and teachers in a usable way, so we're not just waiting for the end of the year, and to make that much more user-friendly. So that is the resource piece, is we need additional capacity. I agree with you on the need to evaluate the efficacy of approaches, and we do need dedicated staff to do that. And then, yes, so I'll pause
I
there.
would think you would build in some metrics right now for each part.
I'd be happy to take that feedback and build in both, not just annual, but quarterly metrics to report back to this board on.
And I have one question from a teacher. What is an operations associate? Could you tell us what that is?
Yes, this is part of our plan around maximizing the time we have in the school day and extending the day. So as you know, we have a part of this plan, and a significant portion of these dollars is dedicated to extending the school day for our elementary students and middle school students, particularly across every single elementary school, all 26 elementary schools at no fee for families, which is something we've never, ever done. And we want to do it at the scale where every single child who wants to can participate. And we intentionally recruit families of students who we know need it based on their reading or math levels, but in particular their reading levels. The operations associate is a role that will coordinate between our extended day partners and our school-based staff to be the point person for those extended day programs so that principals or APs do not have that additional lift on their shoulders on top of everything else they're trying to do. There's an incredible amount of logistical coordination, be it with our partners, transportation, meals, families, if a family's late to pick a student up, or the bus stop, no one's there. But most importantly, it's around coordinating schedules, getting the data to make sure students are placed every 6 weeks or so in the right groups, but they also can rotate enrichment activities as well. But in addition to extended day work, we thought this is an opportunity to help take some of the other aspects of school support, make those a little lighter for principals, given everything that they have. So this person will also coordinate the data collection and helping make the data usable for teachers and principals around the intervention efforts during the day, because to your point, we need to collect data in real time to evaluate what's working and what's not. And then lastly, this person, as we go into the end of the next school year, they will be our point person to help streamline some of the summer school registration process, because these are all additional tasks that, while very, very important, come at a cost for principals spending their time providing instructional leadership day to day in the building.
Okay, and last, a lot of this seems to be happening outside of the classroom where the teachers are, right? And so I have a long list of questions that have come to me from teachers.
Okay.
I just ask that they're the ones who know how this works.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't be having to watch school board meetings to figure out how this works. And so I'm just asking, so that they can stop bombarding us with questions, that the teachers are the ones who are informed about this first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I have a couple of questions, and I also have a comment. What are the challenges to postponing this vote?
I can speak to that, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. Well, again, as I shared earlier, and I'm not sure, Dr. Harris-Mohammed, if you were here at that time, the application to the state is due September 1st, and if we wait until the next school board meeting, I am very concerned that we will not have enough time to submit all the documentation that we need to be able to put forward a thoughtful application, particularly given our MOU, which adds a number of steps to this process. In short, we could very well be jeopardizing all of this money. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that to be inflammatory. That's just the reality, given everything else that we have before us. And while, of course, we will continue to seek feedback on this, I also want to note this is merely a spend plan. It can be amended at any time as our needs continue to evolve. That is something which is very common. And so my counsel to the board, again, since this is the third meeting that this plan has been before the board, I respectfully request that we approve the spend plan tonight so we can begin to get the paperwork in order, get it to the state such that we're able to access these funds, and if at a future date we feel it is important to make some adjustments, we can certainly do that. But I do fear that we put these funds in peril if we do not act tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, I have a comment as well. Excuse me.
Dr. Epp, can you explain the other reading strategies that are currently being used that have not been defined in that plan?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Harris-Mohammed. So this is by no means our only literacy work. This is a extra focused push to really tackle what I would consider our greatest academic crisis. So we have, over the last couple of years, put in place a response to intervention framework, specifically around literacy and mathematics, choosing trying to build up over time. Now, we haven't had all the resources, for example. We've been working to convert some of our Title I positions in schools to interventionists and coaches, but that doesn't allow for coaches and interventionists in every school. So we took that strategy and used whatever funds we have, but then we're adding to that as an example. Another example is we have started the cohort to expand our reading specialists, to pay for teachers to get their reading specialist endorsement. We're just, tripling the number of teachers that we can do through that. And then in terms of our actual interventions and strategies for reading support, we are increasing the number of interventionists, but the programs, our efforts used are the same. So that would be Wilson reading strategies, particularly for Tier 3, or also the expansion of the number of trained teachers who can use Orton Gillingham across our schools. For Tier 2, this would be a program called SIPS, and then another called Haggerty. Those are more like a toolbox for teacher lessons. At the secondary level, middle school and high, Read 180 is a Tier 2 intervention for middle school and high school, and then Language Live is a Tier 3. And these are all evidence-based interventions that you can find on the What Works Clearinghouse. And I'll also add, whenever we take on anything new, even those ones I mentioned previous, or anything new in this plan, in addition to receiving approval from, say, the Federal Funds Office with VDOE, we have to also submit a really robust program approval application to the Office of School Quality, where we have to outline the evidence base for it, how it will be implemented, how it will be measured, how it will be rolled out, et cetera, how much it will cost, what is the funding source. So any of those, we try to build on what we have and then fill in the gaps with these additional funds.
Final question, and Mr. Cameron may answer this, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's right. If the proposed budget was presented at the Parent Advisory Council, is it possible for the board members to review that feedback?
Oh, I don't believe a budget was presented before anything was presented to the school board. No, with all of my various groups, we've discussed literacy as a key priority, but no budget was discussed. No, ma'am.
We discussed the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Epp and Mr. Cameron.
Thank you.
Finally, the opportunity to keep the main thing, and that is the teaching and learning process, the opportunity to enhance our student skills. We know here in the city of Richmond that majority of our children come to school not ready. They have not had preschool experience. They have not had the opportunity to have books. And finally, we always ask for money. Been begging for money for years. We finally have some money, and I'm just excited to have this proposal before us regarding putting all of our energy henceforth into our children to be readers, just not to call words, but to comprehend what they've been given. I'm delighted, unfortunately, because of COVID, but the good part here is that we have finally the opportunity to get those after-school programs in place, of which I've met with many. Last week, I was meeting at one of the churches, Dr. Pat Gould Champ's church, and they had to leave a meeting with me because they had a meeting with the superintendent at 4 o'clock one day last week. So I've seen that, I've been there to see that. It was all virtual, of course, with the ministers from the city. So what my point is, I'm supporting this. I had to read it over once or twice. Then I had to be mindful that this isn't all the money that we have. This is just a portion of the money. And my main concern is, as an educator, not all children read on level by 3rd grade level. I don't buy into the hype. I think that's my personal opinion, that I know prisons are being built, but I also think that's what certain people want us to believe. All right, but I've seen young men in particular learn how to read the 6th and 7th grade levels because they were given the opportunity to read what they wanted to read and they also receive one-on-one attention, which is what we want at this point. So we can't move forward without children continuing to be at the 49th, 59th percent of our children out there not on level with the PALS data, which is across the state of Virginia. So we were already behind. So I am voting in favor of this. Number one, I do not want that type of millions of dollars to go through our hands, and knowing that here again, we're not giving our children what they need. Number two, there is an opportunity to have the books in place. I've been in the schools, as all of my colleagues as well. I'm very pleased with the turnout for summer school. It could be more, but we have to work with whom we have and move them forward, and in due time, that would all come together. What my concern is, at this point, was beforehand the middle school and high school piece. Then when I went back and looked through some other materials, because some students at the middle school level are still struggling. So as we move the first, second kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, first, second, third grade students forward, those students who are already in middle school, they get an extra boost. And the after-school programs, last week I spent some time with a couple of groups, such as Next Up, a couple of others. The information, Ms. Jones, I think you had a meeting also. The information was excellent. So I'm voting in favor of this, number one, because it's about our children. Number two, it's in our strategic plan. And number three, as I always tell you all, share, I don't like our children to be at the bottom. That's why I'm here. I'm tired. Somebody said they were sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of begging. Now we have the money. And it's okay to ask questions, but I'm ready to move forward and make sure, and not because it's August is here, you all. August is here. We need to order those materials and move forward. And if we don't spend the money, one of our surrounding counties that does not have an MOU will. Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Young?
I have a question.
Ms. White, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple questions, Dr. Epps. Tonight, I will not be supporting this plan. And the reason why I would not be supporting this plan, I believe in literacy also. But I know that some of our kids are 2 to 3 grades behind. I have a school that's just like that. I see 20 reading interventions. 20. I have a school that's almost 400 students in there, and they only have 1 reading intervention. That's unacceptable. But when I'm looking here for the numbers of teachers that we're going to certify, it's over 620 to get literacy. Where's the number? If we're concentrating on actual literacy, this number should be higher for reading interventions. We have students that's in middle school and high schools that's still reading 2 to 3 grades behind. Also, extended day. Me too. I have 2 small children, 1 elementary, 1 middle. I'm a parent. Now, I'm going to talk as a parent now, not as a school board person. But I met with the extended day personnel also. And as a parent, I really don't understand it myself because all of the partners have different times. I talked to one, they said, till 5 o'clock. I went to both Summerfest, talked to another one, they said till 7 o'clock. Now, how is our parents going to get this information out when they're supposed to be registering by August 11th? And it's just a confusion with I understand what you're doing. Next up is for the middle schools, but then you have the Y and you have the Parks and Recreations for the elementary. But I'm a working parent, and I get off at 5:30. So if your extended day is just till 5 o'clock, how does this carry on into the Parks and Recreation? Because I can't go all across Richmond trying to deliver my child to another extended day. And as I look at this literacy plan again, I'd like to see a breakdown of the schools where the actual reading coaches are and the reading interventions are. Because I need to ensure that if we're talking about reading interventions and we're only paying for 20, and we're paying for 640 teachers to get certified in some type of literacy, and maybe they may not even stay in Richmond. They may get it and go somewhere else. But we need right today, for those children that are reading 2 to 3 grades behind, they need reading interventions. They can't have one reading intervention for 300 kids in one school. And that has been happening. It was before the pandemic. So if we're gonna talk about literacy, these are the things that I'm looking for. And I don't understand, like I said, and I know you're gonna explain it, about the extended date for working parents. How are we gonna get that information out to the parents before August 11th? And I did hear you say something about the families understanding their children, what current state they are at that moment. But I know the population of my school. So I want to know, what support are you giving to the parents who are not, reading level is not where it can be translated to their children? Because some parents have hard understanding of reading also. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. I appreciate those questions. First, I want to share 2 years ago, not one Richmond school had a reading interventionist or a reading coach. We spent millions of dollars on Title I reading teachers and Title I math teachers without a clear impact, without clear job descriptions, and a catch-all. We've been working over the last 2 years with schools in partnership to move that without disrupting people's jobs, meaning we did not riff or change every Title I math and reading teacher. We took a methodical approach over time so that school principals could help move the people in their buildings into the right roles. So today, we have nearly 80 interventionists and coaches in our building. This proposal reflects 20 additional. And I would say we want to add, if you look in the out years, we add 10 more and 10 more. I would love to add more and more, but we have a plan to provide interventions in our classroom, in our schools and in our elementary schools, which is a big part of the training that we have provided, so that, and our classroom teachers will tell us, they do not want to send their students off only to work with interventionists. Our classroom teachers at the elementary level also want to be part of working with their students with the training. So, for example, our elementary schedule this year, we've adjusted through this plan and through others to where we have a dedicated intervention block. The reading interventionists take the students who are the furthest behind, who need that really intensive training, like Wilson or Orton Gillingham, if you're familiar with those. And then our teachers and others in the grade level take other small groups. So in terms of, we are 100% aligned that we need a model where every elementary student who needs support in reading gets that during the school day. We also, I just want to, we gave principals a choice of, do you want both a reading and a math, or double reading or double math? Well, I didn't give the double math an option. I gave them an option of double reading or one of each. So our first objective, we had schools that didn't have any. And so our first objective was to make sure every school had one of each. And then this doesn't include also a number of what we call early intervention assistants, which are highly trained instructional aides that are also in our building. And I believe the school you're speaking of, they have 4, for example. So we do have, I don't want to, while this is a robust investment, it is a continuation, not the only thing. In terms of extended day, this goes back to what Mr. Camera said about timing, in that we are in routine discussions with our partners, and we have aligned on what we would like the hours to be. But until this is final, there will be a little bit of ambiguity. So the commitment we as a district have made is Every elementary school will have free extended day with meals and transportation for every student who wants it. And that is guaranteed. We are aware that there may be a need for extended aftercare, such as you described, and our partners are working, because families, historically our partners like Parks and Rec or the Y, families had to pay some sort of fee, a sliding scale fee. So one, this is saving our families a lot of money for aftercare, and students are getting enrichment and academic support in line with what we're used to with Parks and Rec or the Y. But we are talking with our partners about offering at each school site an add-on aftercare based on demand, which would be separate from the RPS standard extended day. So the flyer that we've sent out where we're asking for intent by August 11th is the schedule that's guaranteed. But I know in talking with Parks and Rec, Peter Paul, and the Y, they are all very interested and aware and want to add an extended service should the demand at their specific school sites be there. So I think we are trying to solve through that, Ms. White, and it is, our partners have certainly raised it, and it is something that is very much in discussion. Some of it will depend on where we land on this.
I have a follow-up question on that also. And this might be for Mr. Cameras, but I also have one for I'm looking at this school because it is high needs. And when I say high needs, like I said, 2 to 3 grades. I understand what you just displayed to me, but you still have only 20 reading interventions. Well, for a school that has 300 students and 1 reading intervention, I just can't see it. I can't see this plan right here certifying 600 and some teachers, and you only have 20 reading interventions, and you said every year you're going to give 10. It seems like to me, I would have to decrease your training in your 620 teachers and give the schools more reading interventions. And then my other question is, since this is the Biden stimulus funding, it does also include COVID prevention. I know we have been doing some COVID prevention with the ventilations, and I know that we had public comment and I was listening, but there are some problems with ventilation in certain schools with mold, the lighting. I have a school that lighting is out in their auditorium completely, fans, that's a part of ventilation, and that needs to be looked at. And it seems like it's a slow road looking at schools that need maintenance. Those things need to be really looked at because that is a part of the Biden stimulus funding.
Thank you, Ms. White. Are you done? Because
No, I'm not.
Okay, you don't.
And I'm still talking to Ms.
Okay, you have, how many minutes? Ms.
I
White.
couldn't hear you.
Your time is up, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. What can she answer that?
I'll let Mr. Cameras answer the second part. What I would just say is I appreciate and totally understand your advocacy to make sure students, every school has the supports they need. I'm more than happy to sit down with you and the principal of the school together, but to sit down with you and go through some of the staffing numbers. I think I'm inferring the school you're talking about, and I have full confidence that they have the resources in the building to deliver interventions to all of those students who need it in a high quality way. But I would be more than happy to sit down and go through that with you. And if we need to make some adjustments, I'm certain we can figure that out. And every principal we're constantly working to hear what they need and try to find ways within both this type of funding as well as how to leverage other funding. So I believe we've done that with this school and would be more than happy to go through that with you because I agree with your premise and I believe we have a plan that will accomplish what you are advocating for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you, colleagues. As we move forward, our attorney, Ms. Lilly, will let you know when you're up to 2 minutes. There's a 2-minute notice. Thank you. Who's the next one?
Mr. Cameron didn't finish.
He said he was done. I think she answered it in terms of the buildings being ready.
On the item stimulus plan for the schools, facilities, I was asking questions before I got cut off. Although it does deal with the ventilations and mold, is those things going to be looked at or fixed because they need to be?
Yes.
Thank you so very much. And colleagues, I'm not purposely cutting anyone off, but when I call the time, those are the agreements that we called upon. So I have asked Ms. Lilly to announce it rather than my announcing it, because I don't want anyone here to think that I'm cutting them off. So moving forward, the next person who had a comment, I think, is Dr. Harris Muhammad. Is that correct? Ms. Kenya Gibson, followed by Dr. Harris Muhammad. And then Mrs. Page.
Ms. Gibson, you have 2 minutes and 47 seconds.
Ms. Gibson, you have 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was wondering specifically, the regulation notes the local education association and local disability organizations, advocacy organizations, civil rights groups. I'm wondering what the feedback that we specifically received from those groups.
We specifically engaged as it relates to the literacy plan, and I want to remind the board that this is one part of, this is half of the funding, so there are other aspects. In terms of the literacy piece, I think the organization we engage the most is the one Dr. Harris referenced in terms of the Interfaith Council. And we do really rely on our parent, teacher, and student advisory councils for various input, as well as our principals and others. So in terms of the Interfaith organization, which I would certainly consider a local civil rights organization, their feedback was an emphatic support of a focus on literacy. They were grateful for the specific naming of community partners being a part of this plan. It's a pillar of the plan. And their request and feedback was, tell us more specifically what we can do that will make an impact. Is it rallying around book drives? Is it reading buddies? Is it hosting family nights? And so Dr. Harris has been working with my office and those organizations around these, for example, to establish reading buddies for our lower elementary students, as an example. But the feedback, I would say, was overall very affirmative, but with a request for more direction, which is why in this plan, there are more specific strategies rather than broad strokes. I cannot speak to the other organizations that you referenced in terms of the Teacher Advisory Council. Again, speaking specifically, there certainly was feedback around don't forget our middle and high school babies. They too need support. That was probably the largest theme. There was excitement around additional investments in professional development, particularly teacher-directed. The options we're offering for teachers right now are things that they can choose to do, are not required to do. So those were two of the big pieces of feedback. But they also wanted us to caution about not adding things into the literacy block, because given they want to be able to focus on what we currently are doing rather than adding things into the instructional period, which is why there's a heavy emphasis on extending the school day and utilizing that time to support literacy, as well as engagement through enrichment. So while extended day, the primary focus is to move literacy, we also believe it will impact things like attendance, student engagement, socio-emotional support, and things of that nature, which teachers certainly supported.
May I add on to that?
I'm not finished.
Sorry, go ahead. I wanted to also remind her that REA, I see some REA representatives here. They're usually a part of the advisory group.
We tend to have members We do have members that overlap with our Teacher Advisory Council, and these are topics we've discussed with our Teacher Advisory Council. I don't want to call them out specifically, but you're welcome to, Madam Chair. But there are members who have been part of those conversations here.
So, you know, I appreciate the response, but ultimately, we haven't fulfilled the requirements. I mean, the requirements are very, very clear. It says, you know, and their union, so that's not a couple people, that's speaking to the union. We have not spoken to disability rights organizations. We have not engaged. We have lots of civil rights organizations here in the city, and that simply was not done. And I think beyond that, what concerns me is what I've heard, right, is that we've come to people with the literacy plan and said, do you like this plan? That's very different from going to folks and saying, how can we use $123 million? That question has not been asked. And I think when you ask, what can we do with $123 million, residents in Richmond will say, by and large, fix the buildings. Fix the buildings.
With all due respect, we did not go and say, here's a plan, do you like it? We said, we propose to use this once-in-a-lifetime funding to tackle literacy. Here is the literacy data for our children. Here is what it means when you cannot read on grade level by 3rd grade, full stop. Here are some ideas we have. What do you think about this approach, and help us make it stronger? What you are looking at today is probably the 10th or 12th iteration after our internal team did about 5 iterations. So, look, I'm responsible for the literacy portion, but I want to be clear. We did not go and say, sign off on this plan. We did say, 2 years ago, community, you said you cared about literacy, so much that you put it at the top of our Dreams for RPS plan. And the data has supported it and is undeniable when you look at the impact that COVID has had on our children, particularly Black and brown children living in poverty. Pre-COVID, the data was clear. And so the data is undeniable. So while I certainly support that our children deserve to go in buildings that are worthy of their presence, they too deserve instructional support that is worthy of their brain.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Abbey.
Dr. Harris Muhammad, then Ms. Jones. I don't know if Ms. Jones and Ms. Page. Okay. Ms. Williams, we got it. Ms. Williams, work with us. All right. And Mr. Young, I'm depending upon you. Oh, it's all about the children, you all. We are just so passionate. We're going to get through this. So Dr. Harris Muhammad, and then I'll defer back to Mr. Young to get back on track.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I want us to think about, we have an opportunity to hold the superintendent accountable if the plan is not efficiently and effectively implemented. And so I'm going to trust the process. And when the process gets a little shaky, then I'm going to hold the superintendent accountable for not having a cost on the plan that costs so much money. You are absolutely correct, Dr. L. Before COVID, our children, the data clearly demonstrated there were some challenges. My concern is that there is a direct correlation between the lack of reading on grade level and being able to solve real-world problems mathematically. If anyone has looked at a 3rd grade mathematics SOA, just a sample test math SOA, it is no longer tables, charts, plots, it is synthesis. And if they can't read the synthesis, they won't be able to read the multiple choices that are synthesis. My point that I'm making is that reading drives everything standardized assessment. So we have an opportunity, and do I have a little heartburn about how it was done? Yes. The board can address that, and we can address that by holding each other accountable, thus holding the superintendent accountable. So I'm going to support it, one, because I know that there is a direct correlation between not being able to read and not being, all we have to do is pull the data. Shonda did pass her reading SOL, she most likely did pass her math SOL. There is a direct correlation. We have an opportunity, and I'm going to say this again, we have an opportunity, Mr. Candace, to hold the administration accountable if it is not producing the results that you have presented to us. That's it. That's it. And let's move on. There is no back and forth about, we just got to keep the pulse on the ball. That is his job. And if it's not happening, then we'll know. Because we have to continue to ask for reports. Yep. Not when we feel like it, not when we think it's a sense of urgency. It is the team's responsibility, and you know this, Dr. L, to present us the information on a whatever basis. So when that doesn't happen, you know I'm gonna ask.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know when the reports are due. So I'm just asking us to let's move forward. We have an opportunity to move forward and hold the superintendent accountable.
2 minutes.
Hold you all accountable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Young, who's in line next? And then we're going to move forward for a vote, please. Mr. Young. Ms. Rizzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, Dr. Epp, I am certainly not trying to antagonize you with questions, right?
No, that's okay.
You know, I'm sick and tired too. I'm sick and tired of people coming in our town, using our kids as guinea pigs, and then moving on, and our kids still ending up in the same place. I've been in Richmond mostly in and out all my life, right? My parents born here. I've seen waves of people coming in, trying things and leaving, right? And that's why I really want to emphasize this whole thing about accountability, which, you know, Dr. Harris Muhammad just mentioned. We need to be able to have regular reports, to see assessments as we go along. I want to make sure we see the results that we've paid for, and I want us to make sure that we indeed do keep the main thing, which is our kids' academic achievement. So I see no reason for you know, balking at providing us with regular assessments of how these things are working as we go along. I don't want to trash this plan, but I do want to build in ways of assessing it incrementally. I mean, I just really have to see that. So that ambiguity, that part of the ambiguity you mentioned, for me, needs to be resolved.
I take that feedback to heart.
Thank you.
Ms. Rizzi, thank you.
Who's next, Mr. Young? I know someone down on this left as well. Ms. Liz, Ms. Dorr?
Thanks. We're just out here on an island. It's okay though. Totally fine. Okay, so no, thank you. I appreciate it, and this has been a really good conversation. I just wanted to follow up. I don't think all of my questions were answered, so I was just wondering if we could circle back. I did have a question about the governor's HVAC budget, and specifically how much and how the match works, and if we've submitted all the correct documentation to make sure that we maximize our funds there. And then my second question was related to how much money in the ARP funds are for facilities.
There are $8 million in the ARP for facilities, and we are working to access all of the match capability with the governor's funds. I'm glad to do an update to the board on that at our next meeting.
He said he's glad to do it.
Who's next, Mr. Young? Ms. Page?
Thank you. I would like to piggyback off my colleague, Dr. Harris Muhammad, when we're talking about accountability. So from a board's perspective, Dr. L, so the dashboard, once the plan has been implemented, the data will be uploaded in the dashboard, and we were able to see information by school, grade level, subgroup. So this information will be real time.
Yes, ma'am. Depending on the grade level, in our district dashboard, there's the annual goal, and then there are our key performance indicators based on each grade level and when we know we get major data points. So for example, sometime in October, once we've completed PALS assessments for K-3, you would have updated PALS data, for example. And for upper grades, you would have, say, an interim assessment or other, you'll even have data on what was the difference between students who attended summer school and how much they regressed or didn't regress from the winter PALS to the fall PALS, for example. We will also eventually have data comparing students' growth throughout the year for students, say, in extended day versus students who are in certain interventions. So we'll be able to report out on student growth overall, and then I'll be able to drill down into that data to tell you what's working or what's not working. But you will have, as it becomes available, I can't say real time because it's not updated every day, but you'll have a calendar that I think that's built into our board reporting calendar when certain key performance indicators for each goal are updated based on when data is available. No, go ahead.
So essentially, you're saying that we have the opportunity, we don't have to wait on the administration to provide us the reports. Board members can individually go and look at your dashboard.
You can, yes, ma'am. You can look at the dashboard, but we need to inform you of when it's updated based on each goal, because it's each goal based on the nature of it is not updated with the same timing or frequency.
Right. So.
But I'm more than happy to make sure we provide that clarity to the board so you know what to expect. And I know that Madam Chair has made a commitment to present data related to our top 10 goals at every board meeting. And we are in the process of making sure we have all of those things ready and in place. It is not lost on me that this is an incredible amount of money, and certainly we'll be reporting data. I take Ms. Rizzi's comment seriously, and we'll let you know both the high-level data you'll have access to, but as this board makes time in the agenda, I can present detailed analysis.
Thank you, but that's part of the board's oversight. Thank you.
Ms. Jones, I think you're next.
I didn't have a question. I have some that I will send to you, and it's not about the dashboard. It's really just about how the funds will actually be allocated. And so I just had a few questions, but I'll send it to you. No, I'm good. Thanks.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to acknowledge that there are limitations relevant to this proposal, and there is a significant opportunity cost, but like you, Madam Chair, I can't think of a better way to spend these dollars. The truth is that 66% of our students, Dr. Epp, if I recall the number correctly, in grades K to 2 have been identified as projected to be reading below grade level. Never want to be accused of fiddling while Rome is burning. Rome is burning. I would hereto move for adoption of the superintendent's proposal relevant to $123 million pertinent to ARP, Madam Chair.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second, moved by Vice Chair Young, seconded by Mrs. Page of the 8th District.
Dr. Harris-Muhammad.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Harris-Muhammad. I knew it was on this end, forgive me. Just right direction, but wrong person. Thank you, Dr. Harris-Muhammad. Are we ready to vote? Question? Madam Clerk?
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
No.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
No.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris-Muhammad.
Yes.
District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Don Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 6-2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And let's move forward with the next.
Hold on a
Excuse me?
minute. It's 7-2, my apologies.
Right, 7 yes and 2 no's. I wrote it down too. Just so happy that it passed. Look forward to seeing the data continuously. Next item on the agenda is 3.05. Receive for action superintendent's recommended change to start and end time for high school students.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am presenting on behalf of Ms. Gonzalez, who is ill this evening, and we wish her well. We are recommending a modest adjustment to our board-approved high school start and end time from 8:45 a.m. to 3:45 p.m., moving it to 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., so a 15-minute adjustment. This is based on the recommendation of our transportation department, which in analyzing our routes in particular with the first implementation of our actual bus routing of children with the new zones, feels it would be very beneficial to have an additional 15 minutes between our middle school routes and our high school routes to ensure no late arrivals. And so we are asking for approval for this 15-minute adjustment. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Any discussion? Mr. Young, I'm leaning on you. Dr. Harris Muhammad?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Cameron, moving forward, if we can ensure that we have all those extra entities, departments at the table, when we come back and when your office comes back to present this again for the year-round calendar, a year or so down the road, that will eliminate this late game, because I recall asking that vehemently when we brought it back before. I'm absolutely going to vote for this because it's absolutely necessary, but I did share that, that I didn't see that it was going to work out that way. I even provided the evidence. So if we can assure that those extra entities are at the table at the beginning on the front end and not the back end, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm prepared to make the motion if there are any more questions, Madam Chair.
Move forward. Thank you. You had no one else, Mr. Young, right? Please do, Dr. Harris Muhammad.
I move that the school board, school board change the start and end time for high schools, as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Harris Muhammad and seconded by Ms. Jones to take action on the recommendation from the superintendent regarding high school start and end time. Are you ready to vote? Question? Discussion? Debate? Mr. Young? There being no one, we're ready to vote, Madam Chair. Madam Clerk.
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad.
Yes.
District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Don Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move forward to 3.06, receive for action contracts over $250,000, food and nutrition. Mr. Cameras?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I come before you this evening requesting approval for a $12.9 million contract with Preferred Meals, which is the selected vendor after our procurement process for pre-made meals. These are meals that are packaged and ready to eat, though I want to be clear, They are still fresh meals, they are just prepackaged. We use those at a number of schools that have either insufficient kitchen or storage capacity. You can see the schools listed there on the presentation. We did pilot this use of these pre-made meals, and the uptake was actually quite significant. And so this is an expansion of that pilot. It covers breakfast and lunch, of course, but it also covers the at-risk supper program for evening snacks and meals, the summer feeding program, shelf-stable meals as well when there are power outages, as well as, for the first time, meals for our students who are participating in the Richmond Virtual Academy this year. You can see the procurement process on slide 3, the scoring on slide 4, and then ultimately the price, and it's costed out with milk and without milk because sometimes we purchase it with the milk and sometimes without the milk, so this gives us that latitude and flexibility. Thank you, and I'm glad to answer any questions I can.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Okay. Questions? Ms. White?
Mr. Cameras, based on using these prepared meals, does that change the employment for any of the staff in the kitchen?
No, ma'am. There are some cases where there are limited staff, and so this actually helps us leverage that limited staff to be able to provide the necessary meals for our students. But no staff will be displaced by this contract.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a general question. Did we know that this RFP process was happening? I'm not remembering being notified.
Yes, ma'am. We
brought it up at a school board meeting?
No, ma'am. We have dozens of RFPs going on concurrently.
I mean, I just wondered if that's something that we should have been notified of. You know, I looked up preferred meals, and you know, they have like really kind of sketchy like reviews. I mean, I'm just curious, do kids like this food? Is there evidence that they're eating it and they're enjoying it and it's healthy? And
Yes, in fact, my understanding is both, for example, I think it's noted in the presentation, William Fox Elementary actually ended up having a higher meal participation rate once we went to this pilot. The kids were enjoying the meals. My understanding from talking to the food and nutrition team is that was the case in a number of the schools. Certainly, if it were the opposite, that is something we would take into consideration very seriously. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Don Page, Mrs. Page, I apologize. Ms. Page?
I'm prepared to make the motion.
Please.
Oh, okay. So I move that we approve the contracts for $250,000, over $250,000 for food and nutrition.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mrs. Page and seconded by Mrs. Jones that we receive the information, a contract regarding our food and nutrition services. Is there a question, discussion? Question? Then we're ready to vote. Madam Clerk?
District 1, Elizabeth Dewar.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad.
Yes.
District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you all so very much. Let us move to the next item. Receive for action board travel and district activity requests. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
Yes, ma'am, we do have two.
Please proceed.
We have one from Cheryl Burke, District 7, and it is in the amount of $167.34. And this request is for books to be donated to school libraries in the 7th district. And this program, this benefits the Strategic Plan Action 1.2 literacy. And the second is from Nicole Jones, and it is in the amount of $250 to be donated to the J.L. Francis PTA, and this benefits Richmond Public Schools at Back to School Community Carnival for J.L. Francis Elementary School students.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You all have heard the request. Any questions? Are we ready for a motion? Dr. Harris Muhammad?
I move that we accept the district activity request as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Dr. Harris Muhammad and seconded by Mrs. Page to accept the two requests for funds regarding the PTA and the library books. Any discussion? Are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk?
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Abstain.
District 5, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Oh, wait, hold a minute. District 5 is Stephanie Rizzi. Yes.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad.
Yes.
District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, the motion passed 8-0.
Thank you. That's correct, because one didn't vote, abstain, so it's really 8. Right. Correct. Thank you very much. Let's move on. So we finished action items. All right, let's move forward now to administration business. 4.01, receive an update on fall 2021 reopening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attached is the updated spreadsheet, which provides information about our progress on a number of different fronts. I'm delighted about the improvements that we are making and getting close to closing out everything on the list. I do also want to know we are in the process of revising our health and safety guidance based on all of the recent updates from the CDC and VDH given the Delta variant. One point I do want to re-emphasize, we have shared this before publicly, but I think it is worth repeating. At RPS, we will be 100% masks at all time for all students and all staff. There are a couple of exceptions. Of course, when students and staff are eating, of course, they will be able to take off their masks. And our youngest learners, our preschoolers, when they nap, will have their masks off as well as directed by VDH. That is something that we feel strongly about and will continue to push forward with in the interest of the health and safety of all of our staff and students. I also want to urge strongly everybody who has not yet had an opportunity to get vaccinated to consider doing so as soon as is humanly possible. Everyone 12 years and up now has access to the vaccine. It is absolutely essential, not just for yourself and for your loved ones, but getting the vaccine also will help us prevent quarantining and closure of classrooms and schools. So our ability to keep the school system open which is critical for kids and for our working families, is directly connected to the percentage of individuals in our RPS family who get vaccinated. So again, strongly encourage folks who have been perhaps cautiously waiting, assessing the data, please do so. It is absolutely critical, again, not just for yourselves and for your loved ones, but for the entire RPS family. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Cameras? Mr. Young? Ms. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Cameras, I have a couple of questions looking at this graph. HVAC improvements. I see that is very low. So what percentage, or should I say, how many schools still need HVAC improvements? And for nurses, my question is, because I know that during the summer school, some of the nurses they're being shared. Will each school have their individual nurse when fall open? And also, I had a situation at one of my schools during the summer school, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this, especially quarantine. I know that one of the schools had a COVID outbreak, and they were quarantined for 5 days. Then another school had students, and now they're quarantined for 15 days. So are we going by CDC, or are we going by, I guess, whatever the school is deciding to do? I would like to make sure that that is clear.
Thank you, Mrs. White. We go by the Virginia Department of Health guidance. They are the health authority that has jurisdiction over us, and so we follow what they prescribe. And that itself is evolving, frankly, week by week. And so, again, we are incorporating their latest round of guidance, and we'll be issuing that broadly very soon. As for your nurse question, yes, every school will have a full-time nurse of their own. And as for the HVAC question, I don't have the specific number of schools. I would have to go through and count on the drop-down menu, but we have, it looks like here, 36% are in progress, 21% complete, and there's none that have not started. So well underway. Some of these are very large projects, like the replacement of a chiller or a heating unit, something of that nature. Some of them are smaller, fan coils, upgrading to the filtration unit, things of that nature. But if you go through the school-by-school drop-down menu, you can see where each of them stands.
But they will be completed by September?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Young? Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think it's, reopening is always stressful, and so without question, this year won't be different. I'm curious to hear from the administration, what is, of all of the work that there is to do between now and the start of school year, where is the most concern, what's keeping us up at night? What is at the top of the list in terms of, scope and what's remaining to do? How can we know kind of where you're at? Thank you.
The thing that is most keeping me up at night is the evolving nature of the Delta variant, and as a result, the evolving nature of the guidance that we are getting from national and state health authorities, and then turning that guidance into practical, feasible, operational guidance for our schools has sometimes proven difficult, in all honesty. Sometimes the guidance that we are provided is not particularly specific, and yet our schools need specificity to be able to implement it. So we have learned a lot, quite frankly, from summer school. I think it was a blessing that we were in person this summer. Some things have gone great and some things haven't, and we've learned from that. And so I think that is putting us in a stronger position as we go into the fall. As I shared earlier, we're finalizing our latest iteration of the health and safety guidance, not just for our families and staff, but for administrators as well to implement. Looking forward to getting that out, getting any final feedback. We have invited the Virginia Department of Health to come be present at our next school board meeting so that they can answer any questions about the guidance and any final questions that the board may have related to that. But that is the thing which is most keeping me up and continuing to monitor Delta, its impact, and just being prepared as we get into the fall to continue to be nimble as that variant continues to evolve.
Ms. Dewar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree, wanted to ask the same question as Ms. White regarding the protocol for schools. I do want to make sure that we have, and we're communicating about a clear plan for shutdowns, because I could foresee some equity issues there. So I'm wondering, it feels like we're due for a visit from our friends at the health department and the other doctors that have been guiding us. So wondering if we could grab an update from them, if possible, at the next meeting. And second question I have is, so that's just a request for the board's consideration. Second question I have is, do we have the final numbers on how many students opted to enroll virtually? Just curious where those numbers are. And then third question is, I think that the bell schedule is going to be a surprise to some families, and I want to make sure that we are thinking really clearly about overly communicating about that. And so I'm interested from Dr. Harris, if not tonight, at some point, what we're doing to over-communicate on the bell schedule. And then finally, I also agree with Ms. White about the aftercare, and to agree that 5 o'clock is nearly impossible for any working family to pick up their kid. So I'm glad to hear that we're exploring an optional extension. And as a follow-up to that, wondering on the aftercare program, is the program envisioned to be at school sites, if there's an existing aftercare program at the school, will it stay at the school, or will kids be transferred to another location, or has that not been decided? And what is the plan for making sure that we communicate that to families?
Thank you. Starting with the last question, the plan is to remain on school site to make it as easy as possible. As Dr. Epp noted, we are exploring options to provide an even longer coverage for families that need that. So certainly we'll provide an update on that at the next meeting. Absolutely, Dr. Harris has a plan and can share more about the execution of that at our next meeting around not just the start times, but a whole host of factors. I apologize. I forgot my pen, so I didn't write down the rest. If you want to just remind me real quick.
Sure. Do we have the numbers on
Oh, yes,
students
the virtual,
and then the health department?
Yes. So we have already reached out to VDH to come at the next meeting, so we're thrilled to have them come. And we have about 1,900 students who signed up for the virtual academy. So, about 8% of our student body. Actually, it will be our largest school next year. We have staffed up significantly to be able to meet the needs of all of those families.
Ms. Young? Excuse me, Ms. White?
Mr. Cameron, I have another question. If we have to go back to virtual sometime after the fall, dealing with the Delta virus, have we implemented those lessons learned that we have experienced from the last virtue? And also, can I guess if a parent, I was going to ask you, if a parent decides that they want their child to now have virtue, and they did enroll, and now as they see the summer things that are happening in summer with more cases, can you reopen that link for more families to have virtue? Because I know we closed it.
Yes, thank you for that question. At this time, we're not reopening it, and it's largely a staffing matter. We set a deadline so that we could hire the appropriate number of teachers. What we want to avoid is having 30, 35, 40 kids in a virtual class. We know, to your first point from last year, that class sizes matter for virtual just as they matter for in-person. We'll continue to monitor this, and if we do need to make adjustments at some point, we'll take that into consideration. As for your first question, I think we have to do everything we possibly can to avoid shutting down again, and so I am committed to doing whatever is necessary to avoid that. I think one of the blessings of last year is we have learned how to do virtual, and so some of the things that we are putting in place is, for example, if a whole class and a teacher needed to quarantine for 2 weeks, we would shift that whole third grade class to virtual instruction for those 2 weeks so we wouldn't miss a beat. And so because of our experience last year, we're prepared to do that. We're going to have the technology and, more importantly, have the know-how as well.
Ms. White.
Ms. White,
Ms. White's time is 1 minute left.
Ms. White, do you have no question?
Oh, no, he answered. Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Was anyone else, Mr. Young? All right, so the next item on our, thank you all so much. Next item is 5.01, discuss plans for board retreat. At the last meeting, colleagues, I asked that the governance committee, it's not a standing committee, but it's an ad hoc committee, because they still have work to do regarding our manual, our governance manual, that they would consider planning our board retreat, since it's a committee that's already up and running, and then some. I know they planned a meeting last week, but there was, I think, whatever happened with the schedule. So I hope if anyone is against, not against, if anyone is not in agreement with the governance committee planning this retreat, please speak now. You don't have to leave, Ms. Jones. I know. All right, so Ms. Jones, did you want to share something with us regarding this? The date?
So we have several dates out that the clerk sent out a doodle. Have we received any responses to confirm the dates? We haven't.
All right, the dates that Ms. Clark sent to everyone were April 7th.
August.
Excuse me, April, forgive me. August 7th, August 13th, August 20th, and August 21st. Please, by tomorrow, can you all respond to that from 9 to 3 p.m. so that we can make reservations or whatever we have to do moving forward? And I know the committee is looking forward to receiving suggestions from everyone regarding how you would like to have the retreat structured, as well as what topics you would like to have in place. And we do need to have, especially under our MOU, we are expected to have a retreat, and we do need 100% attendance. So Mrs. Clark did send that out, and if you haven't responded, please do so by the end of the day on tomorrow, before the end of the day. How about that? All right, no discussion regarding that? Mariah? Okay, Ms. White?
Can you repeat, did you say the dates were 7, 13, and 21 for the retreat?
7, 13, 20, and 21. So we did Fridays and Saturdays. Say what?
Well, you do know the 21st is the RPS parade.
So what time is that? 11 to 3? All right, well, that takes that date out. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. White. So now we're down to 3 dates. August 7th, August 13th, August 20th. So we'll take that 21st off. Thank you, Ms. White. And Ms. White, you are on that committee, correct?
I am.
All right. And who else is on the committee? Dr. Harris Muhammad,
Ms. Page
Ms.
and
Page,
myself.
and Ms. Jones, chair.
Yeah.
We look forward to a robust, robust morning and afternoon of an opportunity to rejuvenate ourselves and come back stronger together as a team. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, receive for first read new policy and policy revisions based on Virginia General Assembly action.
I'm going to do it, yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Before you is a set of policy revisions. On board docs, you have the policy revision summary sheet, and then the second attachment were the actual policies as they have been documented or revised and track changes. Just to review for the public's edification, the policies that are included in this particular set, and as is titled, these policies are being revised or proposed, as a result of General Assembly action. And I will note, I won't read all of the policies and the summaries, but I will read the title of the policies that are included in this particular package. Electronic participation in meetings from remote locations, sex offender registry notification, instructional goals and objectives, school year, driver's education, family life education, teaching about drugs, alcohol and tobacco, safety drills, equal employment opportunity, harassment, school personnel, acceptable computer use for the personnel section, hiring, criminal background checks and fingerprinting, time schedules, workplace bullying, professional staff development, professional staff evaluation, harassment for the student section, parental involvement in education, the new policy, treatment of transgender students, student attendance and absences and truancy, acceptable computer system use, student suspensions and expulsions, administering medication, and suicide prevention. So these are the policies that are included in this particular deck, and the summary of the revisions are included in the table there. I would ask that if you have any questions, concerns regarding the revisions, to please give me those. Let's get a date. I will add, as I'm getting the date, that these are legislative changes, and so there may not be any flexibility in the revision, but if you need, or if you have questions, I can perhaps provide some clarity. In order for us to have this ready for the next meeting, if you can give me your questions or concerns by August the 9th, that's Monday, August the 9th. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, and we will follow through. Thank you for that update. Okay, we're now ready to move to the next item on the agenda, 5.03, receive an update on George Wythe construction. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening I have two updates. One is a series of questions for the board regarding the RFP, which we are working to put together per the board's direction. These are some content questions which will help us craft the RFP and make for more meaningful responses from bidders. I'm going to return to that in 1 second. The second update is regarding the three construction roles: the Director of School Construction, Manager of Construction Procurement, and the Construction Project Manager, in terms of resumes and screening and such, as an update for the board. let me return to the key questions, and let me just briefly go through them all and then open it up to discussion. So the first and probably most important for the RFP is whether the board wishes to proceed with a prototype design or what's called a clean design. Clean meaning from scratch. As the board is aware, the last round of schools were built from prototypes that were ultimately selected by a panel of RPS personnel. But knowing which direction the board would like to go is helpful, as there are very different levels of expertise needed and different costs related to each of these different approaches, and so bidders need to have a good sense of that when they submit. Second, does the board wish to articulate a level of LEED certification, that is an environmental certification? In the past, we have shot for LEED Silver. Again, having some guidance for the RFP would be very helpful. Third, I wanted to engage the board on whether the board would like to articulate one of the 5 Passion for Learning themes for the design. As a reminder, those themes are STEM, Visual and Performing Arts, Languages and International Affairs, Law, Policy, and Public Service, and then Advanced Career and Technical Education. That last one is reserved for the new CTE high school, so we can perhaps take that off the table. If the board were looking for a recommendation, mine would be to focus on the visual and performing arts, given George Wyth's prior history in that area, and the fact that that is a theme that truly does require building a school particularly for that theme, and that is one approach to take. Next, there was some discussion on the board about additional amenities such as a health clinic or community library, social services center. Again, being able to articulate if that is still on the table would be helpful when we put out the RFP for design. And then finally, I just did want to check in on the WITH advisory group that the board established through a prior resolution. I want to make sure that I am engaging that group in the development of the RFP. So just would request an update on its status and what is the most appropriate way to engage with that body. So with that, if it's the chair's pleasure, we could go question by question and get feedback. I defer, though, to the chair as to how to proceed.
Thank you. Who do we have, Mr. Young? Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can share my thoughts on this list. Ultimately, this is a good list of questions, but they should have been asked some time ago. These are questions that would need to be answered regardless of whom is issuing the RFP. So it is a bit late to be getting asked these questions now. In regard to the question regarding the prototype and whether to have it be prototype or clean, reviewing the city's RFP, which I would presume everyone here has read, the city has left that somewhat open to allow either opportunity, and I would suggest, I would recommend that we take that same approach as well. Regarding the level of LEED certification, given that City Council has requested or determined that the city build at LEED Silver, I think that would be appropriate as well. That's a very baseline level in terms of LEED accreditation, or certification. So I don't know that it has a huge impact in terms of cost. The question regarding a potential specialty program, again, that's not articulated in the city's RFP. It would have been great if we had had that community engagement and could make that decision at this point. I think that we leave that open so that it is clear that there might be this type of specialty program, and I ask that the administration move forward with gathering input and engaging the community in that respect. Regarding the question regarding community amenities in the design, I mean, a health clinic, an exterior library, social services center, these are not things that we funded in our budget, and so in order for these things to exist, that would have to be staffed by the city. I didn't see language for these things in the city's RFP, and so I would presume that there is not a plan to proceed with this at this time. I would welcome input if I'm incorrect there. And then regarding the status of the WITH advisory group, the board did determine to create that group. I would like to see us move forward with that. In previous instances, the administration has supported the efforts of these advisory groups, such as with the rezoning process. I think it would be great to proceed to determine what the survey is so that we can gather names and move forward as soon as possible. Thank you.
Just one note on the advisory group. The board, when they took that action, indicated that the board wanted to take the lead on the execution of that committee, which is why the administration has not. I again welcome the board's guidance on where that stands and how to engage in it. Also, as it pertains to the city's RFP, I took the board's direction to have schools build schools because we are the experts on our schools, and so I've looked at the city's RFP as a baseline, but I'm striving for even more, which is why I've outlined these questions. And again, welcome the input from the body, and then would appreciate guidance after everybody sort of weighs in. I do need the board's guidance so I know how to direct the team in terms of the drafting of the RFP.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Dr. Harris Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Other questions? Okay. And I tried to honor your request, Mr. Cameras, by doing my homework and answering the questions, so bear with me, okay? I'm thinking that a prototype will be a little bit faster just based on conversations that we have heard, so maybe a prototype to consider when we moving out of River City. And then I had a couple of questions about LEED certified. Were the last 3 schools required by the city charter to be LEED silver? And are they LEED silver? And what is the maintenance cost for regular LED to LED silver? And then also, are all the new schools, or the 3 that were currently built under the city's administration, are they LED silver? And then the maintenance with that, from one to the next, because apparently, one is, they added silver to one, so one may be better. What's the maintenance to that? And then with the programming, or the type of program, instructional program in Georgia, I really would like our community to weigh in with that. I would like to see a STEM program, but that's something I would really like for our community and our students to talk about, and also conversations with the middle school students who are going to be going into Georgia. Let's have that conversation with the middle school administrative teams too, to find maybe a survey, Dr. Harris, that filters into the middle schools, that filter into Georgia High School. And that was it. Thank you. I know that was a lot, Mr. Campus, but we can get some answers in the next couple of days. Thank you.
Ms. Jones?
Thank you. I thought it was a great presentation. One, because it was definitely centered around questions that pertain to the needs of the students in the school, rather than just the board deciding what we think we need. My questions were in reference to the city's RFP and whether or not we follow what they put out and leave open certain elements of the RFP, because in one statement, we are saying that the city put out the RFP without our input, and then in the same sentence, we're saying, you know, well, this is what the city put out, so this is what we should do. So I'm just trying to seek clarity on whether or not the school board is leading this process going forward, or whether or not we're going back and forth and referencing what the city has done. My other question was, in excess of all this, will there at any given point be given to the community, where I love, you know, how we're moving forward on this is great, but will there be any kind of timeline that can be provided to the community from the time we will issue the RFP to when we will actually break ground? Because I do think that a lot of conversation has been around what we want, the needs, the community advisory groups and all of that, but we haven't given a solid timeline. So I'd be open to hear if we could provide the community with a timeline. And as far as the advisory board goes, I think it would behoove the school board as well to maybe work with the Office of Engagement if they are open to that, because they have the pulse on the students, we don't, and the families. And so maybe that could be some sort of collaboration to help us as we build the advisory and receive input from the families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Ms. Page?
Thank you. My question, so Superintendent Cameron presented us a report about the enrollment that was back on July the 13th. So my question, the plan that we currently have that was presented by Mr. Young, does this plan take into consideration to accommodate the growth for George Wythe High School based on that data? Because the board agreed in 2019 during the rezoning to hold off on rezoning the high schools due to the fact that George Wythe was not online at that time. So again, does this plan take in consideration to accommodate the growth? Because if it doesn't, we're going to repeat the same mistakes. Different boards come in, make adjustments to rezoning, and the school is over capacity. Superintendent?
In all transparency, as I shared at our last school board meeting, no, I do not believe the plan accounts for the data, and I believe the school will be overcrowded. That being said, the board has taken action, and I'm trying to focus on now executing on the RFP and doing so as swiftly as I can.
So, Madam Chair, can I have a follow-up?
Please, you have time.
So, the proposal outlined enrollment for 1,600 students. So, but based on the data that, again, that you provided to us, it does not include those 400 students, or possibly more. So, my question, Superintendent, how do we plan to address this before we can realistically go forward and submit an RFP?
Again, I've been directed by the board to issue an RFP for 1,600 students, and that's what I'm going to do.
You have 3 more minutes, Ms. Page. Were you finished? You're done?
I'm done.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Young? Ms. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be very quick about this RFP. The city RFP design was brought to us for collaboration. And I believe the board presented the terms that we wanted in the RFP. Now, I'm not sure about, I'm reading this slide. Does the board wish to proceed with a prototype design? In that city's RFP, which is in paragraph 3, it states that 2 prototypes would be used. So I think that was a clear understanding if you read the RFP. Does the board wish to articulate a level of lead certification for the design? That wasn't in the RFP, but hopefully that the lead certification that the board does get is at least certified, because you can go platinum, you can go silver, but at least be at certified. Does the board wish to articulate one of the passion for learning themes? I guess that's up to the board, whatever theme that they really choose. But the design for the community amenities, I think that should be done by the community. The community should come in, maybe take a survey of what amenities are they looking for. If I was in the community, I probably would be looking for a more multi-purpose building, a building where it can be used as a safe haven in the evenings for the families and the children, where they could do different things, and as families. The last one is, what role should this body play in the development of the RFP? I think that the WIF advisory group should be established, and it should play a role with the school board, and as well as a part of what do they want from the community. I hear a lot of their constituents are saying what the school should look like, but if the cities already have in paragraph 3 2 prototypes, they're not saying what schools they are going to look like, I think that we should go by those prototypes. And the next slide, I have a question, Mr. Cameras. I think that you have the new school construction team. Here you shows that the resumes have been have been received. They have been screened, and you said performance test has been sent to 4 candidates. Is there an expectation of the completion for the performance tasks? And are those performance tasks geared to construction? What type of performance tasks are there? And I want to go back to one of my colleagues' question about is it going to be large enough? And I know you didn't want to really get into that, but for the board, I know we went, Cropper did it several times in the last years. And if we really want a new study done, maybe we should do a feasibility study on how many seats are needed in this school. We shouldn't estimate. We should have a definite number.
I would welcome further study of that question, but again, I've been directed to issue the RFP for 1,600, and that's what I'm going to do unless otherwise directed. On the performance tasks, yes, they are geared towards the specific nature of the job. So every performance task for every role is different. We will then make some assessments as to how candidates perform on those, and then take it to the next stage, and I'll update the board at our next meeting.
So when are they expected to complete it? Is there a certain time? Did it get a week or 2 weeks to
Yes,
complete
ma'am.
it?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have the exact date that they are due back, but by our next meeting, we will likely have received them back, and I'll have some indication as to whether they met the bar for the next stage or not.
Thank you.
On your first series of questions regarding the city's MOU, yes, as I read it, the city articulated a request for 2 prototype designs, and I'm happy to move forward in that direction and have similar language in our RFP to, I believe it was Dr. Harris Mohammed's point. Prototype designs are generally faster and generally cheaper, as they already exist. And the city already has the rights to the River City design, which could easily be expanded into a high school design. In fact, River City was built for 1,500, so if we're building a 1,600 school, it's really not all that much different from River City. I do want to just step back for a second. You know, what we are issuing is a request for proposals from architectural firms for the design of this school. To the extent we can tell the architectural firms the scope of the project, it better equips them to give us bids that are meaningful. So the more information we can give them in terms of what we're looking for, the better they're able to scope things out such that when we get the bids back, they're meaningful to us. So that's why telling a firm, you know, you're bidding on designing from a prototype, or you're bidding designing based on from scratch. For a design firm, those are 2 very different costs. So they're going to come back with 2 very different numbers. Similarly, if you're saying, look, we want LEED Platinum, that's going to require different design specs than LEED Silver. Similarly, if you say, we are interested in a design that incorporates community amenities, again, that's going to require more effort on the part of an architect, so the bid's going to be more expensive. Again, my point being, the more we as a body can articulate to the potential bidders, hey, this is generally what we're looking for. Of course, nothing is set in stone. Then you have them put together designs, and then that all goes to the community for a whole round of feedback and push and pull and all that sort of thing. But the more we can articulate on the front end and be clear about our vision for the school, the better bids we get back, and the quicker we can then move. And I think there may not be agreement on a lot when it comes to George Wythe, but I think everybody agrees we want to get it done as quickly as we can. So that's what I'm trying to achieve with these questions. I suppose what I'll do is, since it seems like there are varying opinions, if folks can continue to process this, and if members of the community can weigh in and share their thoughts, I can bring a recommendation to the board at our next meeting, such that I can enshrine it in an RFP trying to meet the August 31st deadline.
Ms. Rizzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if it's worth weighing in now that Mr. Cameras has made that statement. Mr. Cameras, are we done with this?
I was just trying to lay out process, but I'm more than happy to continue the conversation, absolutely.
You know, I don't know that it's necessary at this point. I appreciate what you just said. You know, we need to get some kind of consensus and get this moving. So, I mean, it sounds to me that the board is preferring a prototype that has the option of having some of these community amenities that the community would love to see. it sounds to me that the board is pretty much in line with saying that, we don't want to necessarily dictate what passion for learning theme, if any, gets applied to the school. That's another thing the community needs to be involved in and should make that decision. They should make it. And as far as the advisory group is concerned, I see them really digging in once this RFP goes out to, especially if we say we're looking to include things such as a health clinic, library, or social services center to help determine what those things will look like. Well, that's where I stand with it.
Ms. Page?
Yes, thank you. I need some clarity. I think we need clarity. So are we saying the request for proposal, we are going to copy the language from the city's RFP? Is that what we're proposing to do?
I would say it a little bit differently. I think we're going to leverage what we can from the city's RFP, but incorporating the board's perspective on these key questions. That's what I intend to do. If the board would like me to take another approach, I'm certainly open to it, but I'm trying to leverage a lot of the boilerplate in an RFP that the city has done the work on, quite frankly, but marry that with some of these key design points that frankly are the essence of what I believe the original resolution was about, which is, schools doing more to drive the process. So I'm trying to marry these two pieces.
A follow-up. So I heard what you said. So we are using language from the city's RFP, but on another hand, we're saying that we want to be independent of the city, schools build schools. But it sounds like we are duplicating efforts. And is this the best use of taxpayers' dollars? I don't want to beat a dead horse, but based on what has been just shared with the board, it sounds like we're duplicating services.
Two minutes.
When we should be collaborating. But again, I'm not going to beat the dead horse, but we are duplicating services. Thank you. For the record.
Ms. Rizzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question. I did not mention the LEED certification, and I believe one of my colleagues asked if the other 3 schools that were most recently built are LEED certified. Are they? And yeah, I'm just curious. I didn't hear an answer to that.
I didn't answer it. I want to verify it. I believe they were built to LEED Silver standards, but I want to make sure that that's accurate before I share that.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Jones?
My question just relates back to timeline. If in fact we are going to issue our own RFP, I do agree with my colleague. I do feel like we are duplicating efforts, and if that is what we're doing, that's fine. But I would like to know then what is the timeline. The RFP is set to be done by 8/31, and I'd like to, since we are consistently referring to the community, what are the next steps and what is the timeline? Can we give some concrete timelines as to what this looks like? Because the RFP has to be on the street at least 90 days. So we already know that's another 3 months that we're pushing back. And I just would like to know and be able to be very clear and transparent with the community that we are now going backwards, because now we have a whole nother 90 days that we have to wait to get the RFP out, get it back in, get it scored, get it reviewed, evaluated, et cetera. So that could be another 3 to 6 months. And so can we, when will we know? What is the timeline? Once RFPs are in hand, and then the next steps, and what is happening in tandem while the RFP is on the street and with the different advisory groups. How are we galvanizing all of these folks, and how are we going to assure the community that this that we're still moving forward, and that we won't be moving in? Well, we will be moving into 2022, but what does that look like? I think we owe the public that after all of this time, since we have decided to now do our own thing. Thank you.
I was just going to say, Ms. Jones, we will work to try to paint a picture of what happens once the RFP is submitted. What are the next stages? What are the estimated times? I'll aim to do that at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Young? Ms. Dorr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to, I need to do some research, but I would like to give the board a heads up that I think it's prudent that we revise the resolution to add some flexibility around the 1,600 students at George Wythe. So I just want to give everyone a heads up that I plan to bring a resolution that adds a little bit of flexibility there for the board's consideration next meeting. And if anyone wants to work with me on that, let me know. The second thing I wanted to follow up on is today is August 2nd. This is the day that the city's RFP officially expires. I know we had some to-dos related to Ms. Gibson's draft response to the mayor. Just to let folks know where I stand, I think it's obviously shouldn't be a surprise, but I don't agree with the content of the letter as drafted. I'm not prepared to sign on to it, but I do think that we owe it to the city to officially respond. Just wondering where we are with that.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Prototype, yes. Henrico prioritized prototypes in the construction of Tucker and Highland Springs and selected an off-the-shelf design that they had used for Glen Allen, allowed them to expedite. So I would, for what it's worth, for my vote, I would advocate for prioritization of prototype. LEED certification, remember quite a few conversations with our then COO, Darren Simmons, conveying reservation about our probability of achieving LEED certification. So I know that we will build these facilities in a way that we achieve premium pertinent to sustainability and energy use. But I'm unsure that we need a plaque on the wall to do that. That's what the certification regards. I would concur with the superintendent as it relates to his recommendation pertinent to visual and performing arts, but I agree with my colleague from the 5th and from the 3rd in regards to, first and foremost, obviously soliciting input from all of our stakeholders, but for what it's worth, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then lastly, on other amenities, I think is how the superintendent described it. The mayor's RFP included an ESL welcome center. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I would, again, for what it's worth, my vote advocate for shared spaces. What I don't want to do is replicate what was done at Huguenot and specifically put on about a 15,000 square foot space, i.e. community center, that's rarely, if ever, used. So instead, I would advocate for shared spaces, which could be incorporated into the RFP, absent any design that would not incorporate students in the day, but then community in the evening, and then on the weekends and in the summer. So, Madam Chair, thank you. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Colleagues, I'm thinking back to what Ms. Page just asked, and I'm thinking what Ms. Dewar just asked. I'm thinking about what Ms. Gibson stated in the beginning. I think everybody has good points all brought together, but I too need clarity, because sitting on the JCT, the Joint Construction Team meeting, the way in which, the manner in which we were in phase 1 of building the new George Wythe is that, number one, the JCT discussed using the phototype of River City. So now we're talking again, it seems like we're going around in a circle, and time is of the essence, because the superintendent just stated by the time we get the RFP, then we have to wait 90 days. I don't mind sitting at the table with anybody, but that's me, on behalf of our children. So if the city already has an RFP in place, and we can tweak that, today is the deadline, but maybe they'll give us another day, and then we just work with them for the RFP and the, what do you call it, prototype, which is what we did for the other 3 schools that we built. Is there any way, whether it's 1,600 or 2,000 and 1,600, whatever the number of students, is there any way that we can come to consensus tonight at this meeting, not in terms of who's running it, because in the end, like I said before, not any of us in the last day of whatever as an end result. But what I'm asking is, since we seem like, it doesn't seem like we are repeating what's already in writing and in place. We didn't get to the point of saying a new George Wythe Woodville Tech Center. So going back to what one person stated this evening being promised. So if they already have the RFP in place from the city, can we sit down at the table with them and say, we like this, but we want to change it this way collectively and reach consensus? And then with the prototype, since it was discussed earlier, which now we're talking the same thing all over again, what we talked about in 2019 in the JCT. Well, read the records, read the minutes. So what I'm asking tonight, and I think it would also be a good, we've worked very well with the city collectively. So what I'm asking is, could we tonight consider, Ms. Dura, I'm in agreement with you in terms of response to the mayor and the city council persons that sent the second letter as well. It was something to think about. But as we were writing resolutions, we could have been at the table discussing that and moving forward. So what I'm asking tonight is, if it's not decided, then it is, as the superintendent said, he's going to follow the will of the board. Can we just sit down and just do those 2 things? The RFP with the city, make those changes, and then we already stated with the advisory group, I know Ms. Rizzi submitted that we would have a application process and submit, and move forward with that as well, but we can end this week. So, sometimes, not anyone's fault. Let's get beyond fault. We can be battling all day about whose fault it is. But let's move into the stage of collaboration and then consensus on behalf of every child. So what I'm asking is, and I know you all will bring it back around, can we, number one, sit down with the city this week and agree upon the RFP with the changes of what we want to have made based upon what the community has shared with us. And the second one is to look at the prototypes. You stated, Mr. Superintendent, that the city has the rights to the phototypes that are in place, correct?
2 minutes.
Got it.
I believe that's the case.
Yeah.
I need
So if they have the rights, and we're gonna turn around and recreate it and spend money on hiring some people to do this, when we already have the gold mine right here in front of us, can't we all just do it together? So, can somebody tell me yes or no? And we still are in acknowledgement of the resolution that's in place. It just is, to me, it's just why we're going to repeat what's already in place. So we can't sit down together and collaborate as asked. We were not instructed as to what to do or not to do. It was just sit down at the table together, move forward. Today is Monday. We could be finished this by Wednesday and be on our way with the 90 days. Now we're going to have to wait until after we're hired. Just my thoughts. I know my minister up. Yes. Ms. Page.
Another question that's coming to mind. We need subject matter experts here, because when we talk about lead certification, we're talking about prototype or design, bid, build, or whatever the term is, but we want to make, or we're supposed to be making informed, intelligent decisions without the subject matter experts being at the table. Now, the superintendent, he is following the will of the board. I don't know about you, but I don't know enough about a lead certification to say that's the type of building that we want. Again, we don't hold the money bag, but I would ask that we make informed, intelligent decisions on behalf of our children. Thank you.
Chair, I'm gonna make a motion. All right, Mr. Young will be the chair because I'm gonna make a motion. And I am trying to do what's right. I move that Richmond Public Schools, as of tomorrow, August 3rd, give the administration the lead on sitting with the city's administration to address collaborate regarding the RFP and the phototypes so that we can move forward with our resolution and getting the school built as soon as possible. You the chair.
Colleagues, there is a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second from Ms. Page. At this time, it'd be relevant to open discussion. Ms. White.
Thank you.
Ms. White, you're at your 2-minute mark.
Say again?
You're at your 2-minute mark.
I'm kind of confused. So what you're saying, I can't speak?
I'm sorry. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, I have 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I'm just a little confused. I heard the motion, but Ms. Dorr had just stated that it was, today is today, and it closes. So if any changes that you're going to make, it has to be amended and go back out. So I'm not really sure what this motion is pertaining to. Because the collaboration, we should have, if we was going to have collaboration, we should have been there doing this earlier. Because now it's closed. It's closed today. So I'm a little lost. Can someone explain that to me?
Thank you, Ms. White. Ms. Rizzi?
I think Jones is down there. Jones
No, I also have a question. and that was part of it, if it expires today, is it legal to reopen it? I'm sorry, is it legal to reopen it and have it out there and have it not expire? And then, my second question is, with some of the things that we're talking about tonight that we'd like to see, and some of these would require some changes to this RFP, is that something that we legally can do at this point? And then another question I'd have is, after this vote, and let's say we decide to use that RFP, will things proceed the way that we have been discussing them tonight? Completely, with schools building schools. Those are questions I'd have.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzi. Ms. Jones?
Ms. Lilly, do I have time?
Hold on for just a
Okay,
second.
because I don't want to.
You have 2 minutes and 1 second.
Okay, so really quickly, yes, we can absolutely, once the RFP has closed, if it needed to be amended and added to, we could amend it, well, through the city, they could amend it and put it back out based on the grounds that the specifications changed. Secondly, I think this is the same matter that we just literally went through with the literacy plan. To my colleague Ms. Rizzi's point about will this still be about schools building schools? It will absolutely be schools building schools, because we wouldn't have come this far for 4 or 5 months to not follow through on that. So the same way that we agreed and committed to holding, the literacy plan, we can do the same thing with us being at the table and making sure that things are moving expeditiously and holding the city accountable and really speaking to the things that we felt happened before so they didn't happen again. So I do think we are at somewhat of a crossroad, and it is an opportunity to be able to do just that, which is manage the process and manage it correctly, if that is in fact what we want to do. So thank you.
Colleagues, absent any further discussion, Madam Clerk?
District 1, Elizabeth. I'm going to repeat the motion. Yeah. All right, is it on? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to repeat the motion made by Cheryl Burke. Chair Burke moved that Richmond Public Schools, as of tomorrow, August 3rd, 2021, give the administration the lead on sitting with the city's administration to collaborate regarding the RFP and prototype so we can move forward with getting our school built as soon as possible. And the motion was seconded by Ms. Page. Okay, we're ready for the vote. District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
No.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
No.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
No.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
No.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad.
No.
District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Dawn Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion failed 5-4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Next item on the agenda, consent agenda. We have nothing under that. Number 7, other informational items. Receive budget transfers, receive a report from the joint construction team. 7.03, receive reports from board members attending committee meetings and conferences. Colleagues, that is in your board docs attached. New business, is there any new business? Dr. Harris Muhammad? Oh, okay. Well, no one has that. Announcements? Okay, Ms. Dewar, then Dr. Harris Muhammad.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would like to also give the board a heads up that I would like us to consider tweaking our open enrollment policy for teachers that have students. So if a teacher teaches at a school, enabling them to bring their student to the school where they teach, I think it's a small concession that we can make for our teachers, and it will go a long way, especially with the changing bell schedule, et cetera. And so I would like for us to consider making that small accommodation to teachers for next year.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dewar. Dr. Harris Muhammad?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. On September the 9th, I'm going to attend a free equity-minded leadership for K-12 school board members webinar. Also, at last meeting, I shared with you all that I was invited to attend a webinar with other school board members around the country to talk about what reopening looks like. It was a very good webinar. I met some wonderful school board members across the country, particularly in our region from our area, Suffolk, Surrey, and Isle White. It was very good. I can just submit a summary of what was discussed. I really sat back and listened to what other school board members and their superintendents were doing to prepare. They also discussed the Delta variant that came up. So we're all hoping that we can start school face to face. Everyone on that webinar said the same thing. And also on Saturday, my nonprofit is hosting our 13th annual citywide back to school rally at the former Celebration Church at 5501 Midlothian Turnpike. It is now Liberation RBA Church, and we're stuffing the backpacks Wednesday and Thursday at that location from 6:30 to 8:45. Teachers can come and pick up supplies at 9 a.m. and then students will be able to come in the auditorium and get their backpacks filled with school supplies, network, and we'll have different vendors there as well. And also we're providing a hot meal, like breakfast for our teachers and our volunteers. So I'd love to see some of you, if you can come out or just share the information with your teacher friends and your teacher friend, children friends, so they can come and get a free backpack. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. We're now ready to go into close. Excuse me, you have one more? Who? Ms. Rizzi? And then Ms. Rizzi. Ms. Rizzi, and then Mrs. Page and Ms. White.
Well, you know, I don't know if this is kind of a effort and futility, but I wanted to shout out our graduates, our summer commencement graduates. There was very little media attention given, and I think they deserve a shout out. And so that was an event that Ms. Burke, Ms. Page, Ms. White, and I attended, and it was a very nice. You know, these students worked hard, and I just want to, on July 22nd, there was a summer commencement for RPS students, and I want to shout them out. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Ms. Page and then Ms. White.
Yes, thank you. I would like to give a shout out to the administration and to the Southside families that came out Saturday, this past Saturday, for the Southside Summerfest. It was awesome. The multiple vendors that were there, so much community partnerships, and just seeing the families and the parents really engaged in finding out information or new information or updated information about reopening 2.0 with love. But I just want to say kudos to the superintendent and his staff. It was an awesome, awesome event. It was very well received. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Page, and it was very well, the east end as well, the one on this side of the bridge was also well done. And I thank you so much, Dr. Harris, and all those persons that volunteered. It was truly both. I didn't attend the second one, but the first one. And then they had great hot dogs, too, that were free. And fried fish, yeah, they had it all. But the children's games and all were excellent, so thank you all for that. Ms. White?
First of all, I just want to say, yes, congratulations to the graduates. It was a good ceremony. But I would like to give, tomorrow morning at 10, speaking of tonight, we was talking about literacy a lot. And tomorrow at Carver Elementary, we will be dedicating 2 ready-to-read boxes, one for students and one for adults. Since our children, our students, our parents need access to books, and there is from their homes, libraries are not accessible unless they have cars, so they can always come back to where they know, which is their schools, and bring their parents, and we will have a box, ready to read boxes there for the adults also.
And we thank you, Ms. White, for mentioning that we have the Richmond Kiwanis Club that is sponsoring that event. All right, we're now ready to go into closed session.
Madam
Jonathan, I'm sorry.
Chair, yes, ma'am.
You ready? Okay.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711, subsection A, subsection 1 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, I move that the School Board of the City of Richmond convene closed session to consider the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the school board and school division, or for discussion, consideration, or interview of prospective candidates, to discuss employment matters as detailed in the personnel actions report of this date, and to discuss the performance of specific board employees.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and
Second.
moved by Mr. Young and seconded by Dr. Harris Muhammad that we go into close. Are you ready to vote? Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
District 1, Elizabeth Dorr.
Yes.
District 2, Mariah White.
Yes.
District 3, Kenya Gibson.
Yes.
District 4, Jonathan Young.
Aye.
District 5, Stephanie Rizzi.
Yes.
District 6, Dr. Shonda Harris Muhammad. Yes. District 7, Cheryl Burke.
Yes.
District 8, Don Page.
Yes.
District 9, Nicole Jones.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
right.
it passes unanimously.
We will go to the room where our food is, and we will be back after that. I hope we stay with our 10 o'clock dismissal.